Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Jiraiya figured out Naruto secrets, and help him out part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Are you alright? Scaredy cat, I taunted. My eyes felt sharper as I held back an extremely large snake from eating Sasuke. Something inside me loved the way things stood. I was the one protecting my team while Sasuke was scared stiff. Oh, how the tides had changed over the last few months. There's no way anyone could call me the dead last now that I just saved the pretty boy's ass. Unfortunately, the second I thought this, I forgot all about the gift-wrapped freak on its head. She, or he, after meeting Haku, I learned never to assume someone's gender based on facial features and hair length, grabbed me with his her its tongue before I could react. As I was being pulled away, towards the snake-obsessed weirdo, I was stuck between being startled at my current predicament, mad at letting myself be put in this current predicament, and grossed out that the cause of my current predicament was holding me with its tongue. Let me go, you unisexed pedophile. The person in question looked at me questioningly, as if to ask what the hell is that about, but then it just shook its head and spoke. The nine-tailed brat is still alive, I see. With quite the tongue on him as well. Bet you like that. Again I was ignored, though I did get the pleasure of seeing an angry tick appear on its head. Oddly enough, you and your bijou are coexisting quite well. I'm going to have to change that. It raised a hand, each finger glowing with a different kanji. 5-pronged seal. It shouted as the glowing fingers were forced into my seal. An intense pain coursed throughout my body, making me unaware of anything other than it. I could have sworn that I heard someone shout at Sasuke while the other one screamed. When I thought back on it, I was probably the one screaming, but why anyone was calling out for Sasuke when it was me that was getting hurt I would never know. Everything became fuzzy after that, like I was losing consciousness. I was vaguely aware of being thrown into a tree, then dangling there from my jacket. I felt that if I did let myself get knocked out, something bad would happen. So I struggled to claw my way back to the real world, using nothing but my strong force of will to do so. Luckily, I have a lot of that. Once I was back, I opened my eyes to find myself dangling on a tree, nothing holding me there except a kunai through my coat. I could hear fighting nearby, probably that person and one of my teammates. On second thought, probably not. Well, whoever it was fighting, I figured I could get down without them noticing, but only if I was quick about it. Though I was still in pain, I reached up and pulled out the kunai. After I began to fall, I focused chakra into my feet so that I would stick to the tree, but something wasn't right. My chakra didn't work like it should. This was made apparent by my feet slide down the bark like I wasn't even doing anything. Lucky for me, there was a branch just a few feet down that I could land on. Once I did, my legs wobbled, forcing me to grab the tree in order to keep from falling again. After I was able to stand on my own, I looked up to see how the fight was progressing. To my surprise, I saw Sasuke was its opponent, and though I could tell that the bow-wearing non-gender was holding back, Sasuke was still doing pretty well against it. He was able to surprise it with a couple kunais, a shuriken, and some ninja wire. Something I knew I'd have never thought of. Then the team set the string on fire, burning its face off. No, really, its face was peeling off like an orange peel, or a sticker off a wet billboard. It then said something about wanting Sasuke, and my two teammates froze again. They didn't even move as it stretched its neck out, its snake-like fangs gunning towards Sasuke's neck. Without thinking, I threw myself up as far as I could, grabbing its now extremely long neck and pulling it off course. When it sunk its teeth into bark instead of my duck-butted teammate, it wasn't very happy. I quickly found myself yanked back towards the snake person again, and grabbed by my jacket collar before I could let go. How are you still conscious? It looked at me like one studies a science experiment. I tightened your seal so you can't access the fox's power, so how are you able to keep fighting? I don't need that stupid furball's power to fight you, you creepy pedophile. I yelled back. I tried to hit him or kick it in some way, but it kept me too far away for that. And why do you keep calling me a pedophile? Because you look at Sasuke like hungry kids look at an ice cream cone. You clearly said you want him, and you just tried to give him a hickey. So that makes you some creepy old pedophile or Ino in disguise. Somewhere in the forest, another blonde sneezed, scaring away their dinner. How troublesome, her teammate said before falling back asleep. I'm not a creepy old pedophile nor a fangirl, it said crossly. If you're not a guy or a girl, does that mean you don't have a gender? If you must know, I'm male, but not a pedophile. You look like a chick, I said while reaching for a kunai. But before my fingers could even brush the pouch, the girly man slammed me into the branch of the tree we were standing on. Clever boy, trying to distract your opponent while planning a counterstrike, he said, sounding amused. I must say, you are quite intriguing yourself, but you keep getting in the way. It would be easier just to kill you so I'd know for sure you wouldn't ruin my plans. But then I wouldn't get a chance to study you more. Personally, I didn't like either of the choices. The man was starting to give off the creepy doctor vibe, and I didn't like doctors. I went to voice my opinion but was slammed into the tree again, causing my vision to swim. But I have plenty of time to come up with a solution, I heard the snake man say, his voice sounding as if it was underwater. I was starting to lose consciousness again, but this time there was no fighting it. The last thing I saw was the madman's neck extended again and the sound of Sasuke screaming in pain before all went black. Few hours later. After giving Sasuke his present and that so-called fight with Anko, Orochimaru was in a pretty good mood. He was still floating around the forest of death, more for the fun of it than anything else. Though he was enjoying his leisurely walk, he did have something he had to do. Soon after fighting his precious student, he had come up with a way to solve his problem with the blonde brat. It was an ingenious idea, yet so painfully simple he should have thought of it beforehand. But he had it now, which attributed it to his good mood. It was nearly dark when he ran into the person he was looking for. He dropped down in front of the group, startling only the two teammates. Orochimaru-sama, did everything go well? The unsurprised one asked respectfully. Yes, though I did run into a bit of a problem. A problem I was hoping you could rectify, Kabuto. Whatever it is, Orochimaru-sama, I'm sure I can handle it. The silver-haired man grinned as he pushed his glasses up, making them flash. Few days later. We were on the 4th day in the forest, and were running low on time. Somewhere along the way we had picked up the weird guy with an info cards. He had said something about losing his teammates in the forest, and wanting to stick with us until he found them. Truthfully, I wasn't listening very much. I was still trying to figure out when Sakura found time to get a haircut in the middle of the forest. It was cute, but I kinda liked the long hair better, not to mention after that whole Snake Man ordeal I was kinda rethinking my whole crush on her. She didn't try to do anything other than scream our names, well, scream Sasuke's name. Apparently I'm chopped liver, not chopped ramen, or chopped fish cakes, or even chopped veggies. Anyways, while we were traveling with the silver-haired spectacles man, we had ran into a random team and were able to snitch the scroll we needed when they weren't looking, actually after they were knocked out, but same thing. We were on our way to the tower in the center when we noticed that it was starting to get dark. Considering we had the whole day tomorrow to get there, we decided that it would be best to set up camp so when we arrived there tomorrow, so we'd be well rested. Spectacles offered to take first watch. Though my teammates were a bit apprehensive, they decided that it was probably best. After all, he had more experience in the field than all three of us put together. Not to mention, first was most likely going to be the longest, and we were still feeling the effects of the attack a few days ago, so we all grudgingly went to sleep. Well, I went to sleep almost immediately, not nearly as distrustful as I should have been. Few more hours later. Naruto, wake up. It's your watch, I heard Sakura say as she nudged me with her foot. I simply rolled over. 5 more minutes. Get up, she hissed, kicking me off my bedroll. Why? My eyes shot open to try and figure out what was happening, but the forest was so dark that I couldn't see anything. It's your watch. I could hear her footsteps move away as she made her way back to her bedroll. I'm going to sleep, so you better stay awake, or you'll regret it. Alright, I'm up, I said, finally sitting up close to my bedroll. I figured, since it was so dark, it would probably be safer to stay where I was. I didn't want to trip over anyone and wake them up. That would be bad, especially if it's Sakura, she'd beat the crap out of me. So I sat there waiting for the sun to rise. It felt like several hours went by without the sun even starting to peek over the horizon. I was sure the sky should have gotten lighter by now, but it wasn't. It was, apparently, going to be one of those days when time just drags on almost as if it stopped. It was a while later that I heard someone's bedroll rustle. Thinking they were just going to turn over and go back to sleep, I was surprised to hear Sasuke HM in disbelief. Dobe, you were supposed to wake us up at sunrise, he said, his voice sounding a tad annoyed. The sun's taking its own sweet time rising. It's already up. Impossible. It's already 10 o'clock. I glanced around, starting to get worried about not seeing anything. Sakura, we have to go. The Dobe decided to ignore the sun. What? Baka. Are you blind or something? I heard them packing and yelling at me some more, but I wasn't listening very well. The whole blind comment kept repeating itself in my mind. I bolted to my feet, desperately looking around, searching for anything to prove myself wrong. I stumbled away, tripping over my sleeping bag, ignoring my teammates as they called my name, confused. There had to be something, even if it was just a small smidge of sunlight. But before I even found it, I ran into something hard head first, knocking myself out cold. The last thought that crossed my mind was I really couldn't see. A few hours later. After several hours of hiking through the forest while taking turns carrying their unconscious teammate, they finally reached the tower. Kabuto found his team and took off with them while they lugged Naruto through the door. Once inside, they dropped him to the ground, simultaneously waking him up in the process. "Get up, Dobe. We're here," I heard as my head popped up from the floor. For a moment, I thought my visual situation was just a dream, but as soon as I opened my eyes, I knew that wasn't the case. Now that I thought about it, I could feel the heat from the light, but everything still looked black. "Once this is over, you have a lot of explaining to do," Sakura stated angrily from my right. "I don't know why you freaked out this morning, and frankly I don't care. But after carrying you for several hours, we deserve at least a bit of an explanation. You got that, Baka?" I snapped my head to the right, pretending to look at her, and nodded. For some reason, I just didn't want them to know yet. Everyone already thought of me as the dead last. I was afraid of what they would think if they knew I couldn't see. "I'd want to hear it now, but we have to figure out what the plaque means." I nodded again, deciding it was wise not to get up. Considering I didn't know my surroundings, it was probably better to just sit there and pretend I knew what was going on. "Get up," I heard the team say, his voice off to my right as well. "I'm fine where I am, thank you very much," I answered as I straightened myself up so I could sit there cross-legged. "Naruto!" Sakura yelled, hitting me over the head. "Stop messing around and get up." "No." I crossed my arms stubbornly. "Naruto," she hissed. "No. I'm sitting right here till I darn well have to move, and there's nothing you can do about it." "Why?" Sasuke asked, as monotone as ever. I froze, not planning this far ahead. I never thought they would want to know why I was being so stubborn about this. I had to think fast and give a plausible answer before they jumped to the wrong conclusions, or the right one. I stalled as I aimed my eyes at the floor. At least this way I wouldn't need to try and look at anything as I thought. But I was never the sharpest kunai in the pouch, so I just couldn't think of anything, no matter how hard I thought on it. "Just because." "Naruto," Sakura threatened again, making the voice I used to think sounded so pretty, compared to nails on a chalkboard. "Answer him." "Why should I?" "Because he's Sasuke." "Don't care." "He's your teammate. You have to answer." "I don't care if he's the Hokage. I don't need to tell him nothing," I declared loudly before they all went silent. After a few seconds, I heard footsteps come from the right. I tensed myself, wondering what the team was going to do when I was suddenly yanked up by the front of my jacket. Unfortunately, my feet couldn't get under me in time, so I ended up dangling there, completely confused and surprised by the turn of events. "Why?" Sasuke's voice was a lot closer than before. In fact, I doubted he could be any closer if he tried, at least without reliving the last day of the academy, and I really didn't want to do that. "Because I don't like you." He meant, "Why won't you get up, you baka?" Sakura shouted before I got hit again. I think it was Sakura, but they sounded so close that I wasn't sure. "Answer or Sakura will hit you again." I heard her crack her knuckles in anticipation, making me gulp. I never realized what a force the two of them could make against their only other teammate. But it was about now that I figured out how to solve my problems. "Dizzy," I mumbled to them, hoping not to get hit. "What was that?" "I'm dizzy, all right." I didn't want to stand up and fall right over again. "Dizzy?" Team asked, most likely finding it a bit hard to believe. "Yeah, dizzy. I was hit really hard." "You mean you hit the tree hard?" I had to practically bite my tongue off to keep from asking if it really was a tree. Somehow I didn't think that would have gone over too well. Instead, I decided it was best to move on to a different subject. "Yeah, whatever. I thought we were going to save the 20 questions till after the plaque thingy." "This was different," Sasuke said as he dropped me onto the floor for the second time in the past few minutes. "Hey! What was that for you, duck butt MOW? Sakura! Stop hitting me! Stop insulting Sasuke and I will." "It's not an insult if it's true." "The plaque," Sasuke broke in as Sakura's fist passed to the right of my head. How the hell she had missed when I didn't even know to dodge, I don't know. I could hear Sakura's feet tap on the floor as she hopped up to focus on whatever plaque was in the room. Luckily for me, they read it out loud, even luckier that they didn't even expect me to know what it meant. Somehow, the two of them had come to the conclusion that they were supposed to open the scrolls. I heard the seals break as the scrolls unraveled faster than my teammates could do so. There was some fizzing as Sasuke yelled to drop them. They clattered to the ground just before there was a quietish pop, and then silence. "Yo!" the unmistakable voice of Kakashi said happily. "Kaka-sensei? What are you doing here?" I asked curiously. Well, Irika was supposed to be the one to explain it all, but he was unavoidably detained. 3 of his students were caught trying to prank all the clan compounds during school hours. Really? Cool. It was Konohamaru's group, wasn't it? Yes, the infamous Gago Brigade strikes again. How far did they get? Let's see, they had set alarms clocks in the Nara compound that are going off every 5 minutes, and were caught trying to sneak flash bombs into the Hyuga compound. They were also in possession of several suspicious items including bug spray, dog whistles, the makings for rope foot traps, and several bags of chips that were thought to be used as the bait. And on a completely unrelated topic, Sasuke, I think you're going to have to hire a decorator. Someone snuck into your building while you've been gone and painted your apartment pink. Why would someone do that? Sakura demanded loudly in order to be heard over my laughter. Who knows? Kakashi announced happily. He waited patiently until I sat up again and stopped laughing before he continued on to the topic at hand. Anyways, I'm here in his place to explain the meaning of the plaque. I tuned out as he spoke, explaining something that I wouldn't understand anyways. Instead, I opted to think on what I was supposed to do about my new bind status. I thought about telling someone, like Sensei or Hokage Gigi, but as I thought about it, they probably would want me to quit being a ninja. After all, I've never heard of a blind ninja. I wanted to be a ninja, had to be in order to become Hokage. Plus, if I wasn't a ninja anymore, then the villagers would start up their crap again. I pushed the thought away, deciding that I was going to keep the whole thing a secret. It was the only way to achieve my goals after all. Didn't quite know how yet, but I'd figure it out. Naruto, are you even listening? I was snapped out of my thoughts by Sakura's banshee-like voice right in my ear, making me wince. What the hell, Sakura? Are you trying to make me deaf? I couldn't help but be angry at her. I mean, I was pretty much relying on my hearing to know what was going on around me. With that being said, I guess it was starting to get progressively sharper the more I focused on it. So that loud, high-pitched voice in my ear was starting to get painful. You're not even listening. Why do you care? She shot back. I was about to respond when Sensei spoke up. Now you two stop fighting. He sounded amused, and maybe a bit suspicious. Naruto, why weren't you listening to the explanation? And because it's kinda confusing. Alright then, I'll explain it in simpler terms for you. As a Chunin, you must work on what you are weak in. For instance, if you are strong in Taijutsu and Ninjutsu, and weak in strategy, then you must work on your thought process to fix it. And vice versa. Do you understand now? Yeah, thanks Kaka-sensei. I gave him one of my goofy grins from the floor. Unfortunately, I didn't see how he reacted, but he was probably smiling back. Now, would anyone care to explain why Naruto's sitting on the floor? I tensed slightly at this, unsure of what to say. Luckily, the more talkative of my teammates was there to unwittingly cover for me. The baka here lost it this morning and ran into a tree. We had to carry him back here after he knocked himself unconscious, and now that he's awake, he's dizzy. Is that so? Yeah, I'm an idiot, I agreed, attempting to look at my sensei. But I think it might have been a genjutsu some other team put on me. And why's that? Well, I was the only one on watch, so it kinda makes sense that they wanted our scroll. So I guess they decided that they should steal it while you were sleeping and I was distracted. Then why didn't they? Sakura asked, suspiciously. How am I supposed to know? I'm not them. I was feeling quite proud of myself for coming up with such a good story in such a short amount of time. I guess it makes sense. After all, whoever was still out there would be pretty desperate to get a scroll. Maybe they only saw the one scroll they already had, so they left, thinking it was the only one we had. Sounds plausible, Sasuke said. Alright. You three have an hour before you must meet in the testing room. Kakashi's tone was quite chipper. I suggest you pick up some food from the cafeteria. Food? Real food? I throw my arms into the air with such force that I knocked myself over. Kaka-sensei? Where is the cafeteria? Sakura sounded almost as excited as me. Does it have ramen? Right through the door over there. Kakashi must have been pointing towards the door. And yes, it has ramen. Yes, I exclaimed happily. It was only a moment after that I realized I had no idea where the door was. Thanks, Sensei, Sakura said, sounding a lot cheerier than I was feeling right now. I heard 2 sets of footsteps walking away from me somewhere off to my right. I blinked as an idea struck me. They knew where the door was. They were heading towards it right now. I could hear which way they were going. Therefore, I knew which way the door was. Oh, and if I waited long enough, I could probably figure out how far away it was too. I sat there, feeling proud of myself for a moment before I realized the only reason I came up with that was because there was ramen on the line. Of course, I had no real problem with this, so I didn't lose my happy attitude. Hey Sasuke-kun, so you want to? No. But I didn't even. No. You're not even listen. No. But Sasuke-kun. No. I listened to my teammates' voices fade as they moved away towards my goal. Sakura was just starting to say something else when the creaking of the door told me it was somewhere to my right, and only about 20 paces. With this in mind, I went to get up after the door clicked shut. Naruto. I jumped at my name being called, almost forgetting Kakashi was even there. What? I was starting to get irritated with the man. There was ramen on the other side of that door, and he was keeping me from it. I'm pretty sure I had every right to be snippy with him. Mind if I ask you something? You just did, but sure. Are you blind? Huh? I asked, completely stunned at his question. I thought I was doing pretty good keeping it a secret, but somehow he knew. Let me rephrase that. At what point, in between now and when I last saw you 5 days ago, did you lose your sight? Sensei? Are you feeling well? I'm not blind. My vision is 20/20ths, like always. Your eyes haven't been tracking correctly, and whenever a conversation starts, you look at the floor. So? Maybe the floor looks better. Naruto, Kakashi said, his tone scolding. I'm not blind, Kaka-sensei. Come on. Would a blind person know where the door is? It's right over there, by the way. I pointed towards where I knew the door to be, hoping that would be enough to convince him. Mama, I guess you're right. How silly of me, Kakashi said. I was mentally patting myself on the back when he spoke again. But I'm still a bit worried about you. So how about this, if you answer my last question correctly, I'll let the whole thing drop, okay? Yeah, sure. How many fingers am I holding up? I froze at the question. Come on, if you can see as well as you say, this should be easy for you. 2? Are you sure? Of course I am. Too bad, it was 4. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was, see? 1, 2, 3, 4. He matched each number with a tap on my nose using the different fingers. You must have switched them. If I did, wouldn't you have seen it? His voice was closer now, like he was kneeling in front of me. I sighed, knowing I was beaten in the battle of wits. Now, care to answer my questions truthfully? Yeah, I guess. But a couple things first. He made a sound that I interpreted as continue. How did you know? Other than your eyes not tracking? I nodded. I said there was ramen and you didn't even move to get up. Instead, you waited for your teammates to move first so the sound would tell you where it was. Pretty smart move, by the way. Of course it was, ramen was on the line. I smiled happily. Speaking of which, let's eat. You're supposed to be telling me what happened. I can do that as I eat, can I? I tried to use my puppy eyes on him, but was unsure how well I was doing. Well, I guess. Before he could finish, I was on my feet and to the door, trying to find the doorknob. When I finally found it, I yanked the door open, only to practically faint at all the noise that assaulted my ears. It was like at the academy, only 10 times worse. Everyone must have been in there because my 2 teammates couldn't make this much noise by themselves. I didn't even notice that my legs gave out or that I was now lying in the doorway with my hands over my ears. I did, however, notice that the volume dropped a bit, but not enough to make it any better. Sensei, is he alright? Sakura asked over the noise. Yeah, he's fine, Kakashi's voice came from somewhere behind me. He's still a bit unstable from that genjutsu, I'd imagine. Plus, he just caught his first whiff of ramen in 5 days. I heard several ohs and a few chuckles before they continued their conversations, though a bit quieter to my relief. Volume a bit much for you? I heard my sensei whisper right next to me. He was most likely kneeling next to me in order to keep quiet. It surprised me. I'd imagine so. Anyways, this place is packed, so I'm just going to carry you to a secluded little table so we can chat. I tried to protest, but before I could, I was already on his back being carted off to who knows where. Don't worry, they won't think anything of it after the explanation I gave. Your explanation sucked. But it was believable, he said with an audible smirk. I hate you. Well, that's nice. It was about now that he stopped, presumably at a table, then slowly set me down until I was sitting on a hard wooden chair. Then after a second I heard a chair scratch the floor in front of me before he continued. If that's the way you feel, I might not want to go get you any ramen. I didn't mean it. It was a total lie. You're my favorite sensei ever. Am I now? Yeah. Definitely. I said desperately. So do I get my ramen now? I suppose, he said with a chuckle. I'm only grabbing 2 though. But if I get any more, you won't have time to tell me everything. His chair scraped the floor again before I heard his footsteps walk past me. Be right back. I lost track of him soon after that due to the chatter in the cafeteria. I was starting to get used to all the noise surrounding me. Unfortunately, now I couldn't figure out what was happening around me. I wasn't able to separate the important stuff from the background noise. So it wasn't too much of a surprise when my sensei was able to startle me. Here you go. He loudly placed something in front of me, making me jump. After the initial surprise wore off, I realized he was talking about the ramen and sat up straighter. Chopsticks are right in front of you. Thanks, Kaka-sensei. I quickly found the chopsticks before breaking them open and started digging into the first bowl. It wasn't very hard to do, even though I couldn't see the bowl. I've eaten ramen so often I really didn't need to. Now, Naruto, when did this happen? Don't know, I answered, my mouth half full. I swallowed before continuing. When I went to sleep last night, my sight perfect. I woke up and it was gone. I didn't know until Sasuke and Sakura yelled at me for not waking them up that something was wrong. So then I freaked and knocked myself out with a tree. Apparently my teammates carried me over here. Was there anything strange that happened yesterday, like a cloud of smoke that only hit you or something like that? No, all we did was knock out that other team while they were eating and stole their scroll. Then we traveled for a bit, made camp and ate some gross fish the team caught before falling asleep. Any suspicious people that you guys came across? Nope, we did let this guy, Kabuto I think, travel with us while he looked for his team, but he's pretty harmless, for a ninja. Kakashi didn't respond, so I continued eating my food, figuring he was lost in thought. I had finished off the first and was halfway through the second before a thought struck me. Sensei? I asked quietly. He made a noise to tell me he's listening. Do you think that this is permanent? There was silence for a while before he said anything. I don't know. It's possible, but you'd have to be examined. No. There was quiet for a moment before he answered. Why not? If I'm examined, then they'd tell the Hokage and he'd have to take away my ninja status. Naruto, in this condition it's too dangerous for you to be a ninja. It'd be even worse if I wasn't, I said before I realized I had done so. I could almost feel the curious look Kakashi had aimed at me. What do you mean? He asked. I looked down out of habit. I didn't say anything, knowing that I had said too much already. Naruto, answer me please. You know the civilian laws about ninjas, right? I asked with a sigh. That if you assault a shinobi of the Leaf or one from an allied village without provocation, you will be charged with treason, which is punishable by death. Yes, I know of it. Well, that's the only thing keeping me safe right now. If I was a citizen again, there would nothing stopping them. Less consequences, I guess. But why would that worry you? They see me as the demon. Do you think for 1 second that if they had a chance to kill me, without being executed themselves, they wouldn't? Not all of them. Don't need all of them, just a couple strong ones, a few bottles of sake, and maybe some blunt weapons. After all, it wouldn't be too hard to catch a blind kid. I stayed quiet in order not to be overheard. And don't try to tell me they wouldn't, because before I was in the academy they do so. The only reason they stopped was because you're not considered a citizen when you're training. I see, he said after a bit. You won't tell, will you? I raised my head to look towards him. I don't believe it's necessary to put you at risk like that. You mean? I perked up at this, hoping he was saying what I thought he was. Yes, I'll keep your secret. It was all I could do to keep myself from shouting in excitement. But only if you listen to my direct orders. For instance, if I say something is too dangerous for you, you won't go charging in otherwise. Is that understood? Hi. That, and I want you to let a medical nin examine you after we're done here. But she's a friend of mine that lives outside the village, so she doesn't report back to the Hokage. But what if she does anyways? Don't worry, she's trustworthy. I've known her for longer than you've been alive. If I ask her to keep it a secret, she will. Well, if you can trust her, I guess I can too. Good. Now finish up your ramen and we'll get going. We're supposed to be there in 20 minutes after all. Yes, sir, I said with a mock salute as Kakashi chuckled at me. But only if you get me more ramen. If I get you any more ramen, we could be late for the meeting. And you care? Not really, be right back. You're late, Sakura yelled from behind me somewhere as Kakashi and I shined into the meeting place. I stiffened a wince as I tried to figure out why she was shouting so much. It was only 10 minutes. Well, you see, there was this blind man that got lost, so me and Kaka-sensei had to make sure he got to where he was going safely. We're in the middle of the forest, Shikamura pointed out, sounding bored. He was very lost. How troublesome, he stated, barely heard underneath Sakura's lyre. If she only knew how close to the truth it was. Kakashi, I'd prefer if you saved the corrupting of your student until after the exams. The Hokage sounded almost exasperated as he spoke. At least then he'd have a fair chance of showing up on time. I'll try, Hokage-sama, but it's hard to convince a student to not mimic their role model, Kakashi said sagely. I heard the other man sigh. I mean, look at Guy and Lee. The mentioned duo started shouting each other's names as they prepared their sunset genjutsu of death, youth. At the sound of the traumatized/disgusted populace, I was suddenly a bit glad I couldn't see it. Moving on. Naruto, if you could join the others, I'll get started. I panicked for a moment, trying to come up with a good excuse. I'd rather not. And why is that? Well, they're kinda mad at me, so if I go over there, they could hurt me. There was silence after that, probably from confusion. So Kakashi decided to explain. They had to carry him back because he knocked himself out with a tree. A tree? Ino exclaimed. How the hell do you knock yourself out with a tree? It's a talent. I pretended to flip my imaginary long hair over my shoulder. And I'm not sharing. Why would anyone want to? Ino was about to continue when the Hokage cut her off. Okay, that's enough. If you feel more comfortable where you are, then you may stay. It doesn't matter much anyways. Thanks, Gigi. I heard a few people make disapproving sounds at that, but I didn't really care. Now, before we get started, let me just say that from here on out, you will not be working in teams. So when I say you have the option to drop out, your personal choice will not affect your teammates. But before we get to that, I must announce that due to the number of you that passed the second test, we are going to have to run a preliminary test as soon as I'm done. So if any of you feel as if you are not up to a one-on-one fight, then please withdraw from the exam. Kakashi nudged me as two of the other contestants dropped out. The first guy kinda sounded like the spectacles man we ran into. The second was announced to be some kid from Taki, who apparently got his leg broken out in the forest. The whole time, that poor kid's teammates were shouting at him to come back and face it like a man, or at least the feminine-sounding one was. She probably wasn't that stable of an individual, especially if she thinks her teammate can fight on a pair of crutches. You should drop too, Kakashi whispered, snapping me back to the present. You're not ready for this yet. I can do it. Naruto. I can do it, sensei. There was a disapproving silence before I spoke up again. At least let me see who my opponent is. He thought it through for a few seconds. Alright, but if I say it's too difficult, then you forfeit. Okay? I guess, but that's not going to be a problem. I can handle anyone they throw at me, Databoyo. I could hear him chuckle as a set of double doors closed with a thud. Is there anyone else that wishes to leave? The Hokage asked. When no one spoke up, he continued, going into this long spiel about war, or war substitute, or something like that. Again, I wasn't really listening, opting to try and figure out how to keep my eyes a secret. After all, Kakashi said earlier, during my 5th bowl of ramen to be exact, that only a blind man, or another blind man, would be unable to see that my eyes weren't tracking. I mean, I can't keep my eyes shut forever. It would eventually get me into trouble, especially considering I doubt my opponent would like it. As I thought this, I was vaguely aware of the Hokage's speech being interrupted by Guy shouting something about saving some poor kid's flames of youth before his eternal rival could do any more damage. It wasn't until a hand landed on my shoulder that I was shocked out of my thoughts. No need to worry, I shall make sure your flames of youth stay bright. And if I fail, I'll. Did you say something? I asked, unknowingly parroting my sensei's line. No. It's too late. His cool, hip attitude has already spread. Kakashi snickered as the Hokage then decided that this would be a good time to gain back control. And now, on with the preliminaries, he announced, getting everyone's attention again. Each match will be chosen randomly by our randomizing computer. As long as it doesn't glitch again. He ended up whispering the last part to himself, making me wonder what he meant by that, and why Kakashi was chuckling. After it was announced that Sasuke and this other dude I didn't know were up first, Kakashi shunshined the pair of us somewhere else. We're on the balcony above the arena. I heard everyone else climbing up the stairs that we essentially skipped. Okay. Hey, why does that computer thingy glitch? If it's such a great piece of technology, they shouldn't have a problem with it, right? He started chuckling again, making me even more curious. And why do you find it so funny? Well, you see, it was created about 16 years ago by the fourth. The fourth Hokage? No, the fourth ramen stand owner. The sarcasm was practically dripping off his words. Yes, the fourth Hokage, back before he was Hokage. He was a great seal master, and that thing runs entirely on seals. So? Well, there were only 3 seal users in the village, one being the fourth, another was his sensei, while the last was a close friend of his. Now, what you have to understand about this friend is that she was one hell of a prankster, as in you would be amateur in her eyes. A good amateur, but one nonetheless. Really? Why haven't I heard of her? Where is she now? Unfortunately, she died the same night as the fourth. I looked towards the ground. I knew that was just a nice way of saying that it was in the Kyuubi attacked. But not without leaving a few things to be remembered by. Like what? I glanced back up towards him, curious once again. Well, for one, that computer. I gave him an odd look and he continued. When the fourth was making it, this friend decided to help him. So one night he was out on a mission, she snuck into his house and made a few adjustments. Now whenever it's used, a few unexpected pairing pop up. They never know when, but every time it does, everyone that knows about her prank has to chuckle. So not everyone knows who did it? Very few do. Then how do you know? The fourth was my sensei. I had to listen to him complain about it for months afterwards. Why are you gawking at me like that? The fourth was your sensei. Didn't I say so before? No. Anyways, I had to listen to him complain for a long time after that, especially considering neither he nor his sensei, Jiraiya, could fix it. Why not? She was from a very elite clan that specialized in sealing, he told me. I wanted to know more, all of this sounded so interesting. I was about to ask another question when I was interrupted. Here, we'll talk more on this later. Right now we should be supporting your teammate while he's fighting. He's fighting? For the past 2 minutes. Oh well, it's not like I can watch, I said quietly. Hey, won't people know if I'm not watching the fight? Good question. He sat there quietly for a moment before he spoke up again. Here. I heard him rustling through a pack before he pulled something out. Catch. I held my hand out just in time to catch whatever he threw. After further examination, I figured out it was a book. If you pretend to read it, people will think you're distracted. It's not that pervy book, is it? If I gave you one of those, we'd both get killed, whether you could read it or not, he said, sounding suspiciously seriously. So, what is it? It's from the same author as my Ika books. It's his only non-perverted book entitled Tale of the Gutsy Ninja. I'm sure you would have read it as well eventually, if this hadn't happened. Okay, as long as it's not going to get me hit. The book itself won't, but your inattention might. Before I could reply, there was a crash followed by a loud cheer from most of the female onlookers. Let me guess, Sasuke won. I deadpanned right before they announced that I was right. Good guess. I opened the book up to the first page, feeling so bored I wished I really could read it. Now stay right there until I get back. I have to take care of something for Sasuke. And if you're called up before I get back, be smart. If it sounds like a challenge, then back out. I can take anyone. Maybe you could before. Promise me that if you come up against a strong opponent, back out. Alright, I promise. Now, no breaking your promise. After all, if you do that, you'd be breaking your nindo as well. I won't break my nindo. Databoyo. Just making sure. I stuck my tongue out at him before focusing back on the book. I could hear him chuckle again before he poofed away. After a moment, his voice could be heard speaking on the ground level. After I heard the two of them were taken off the floor, they announced that Katsu, some guy from Taki, was versing Shino. Well, after they convinced Guy that the Flames of Youth was not a legitimate competitor, so it would not be competing against the lesser-known fire extinguisher of fate. I laughed, knowing Kakashi was right about this. Whoever was the mastermind behind this was a pranking genius. If I was still pranking, I would definitely take this as a challenge. A trick this epic would be a great thing to aim for. But I had promised Gigi that I'd stop once I was a ninja, and I had. For the most part. But just for fun, I started thinking of stuff I could have done during Shino's match. Unfortunately, it was over so quickly that I had only come up with a couple. Apparently he won by sucking the chakra out of the guy until he passed out. Across the room, I heard some chick laughing hysterically. She yelled something about wondering why his name didn't assure his victory like he said it would. It took me a bit to figure out what she meant, until I remembered that the boy was named Katsu, which meant victory. The matches went relatively quickly after that. Kankuro beat the human rubber band. Sakura and Ino decided to just knock each other out instead of actually doing anything. I breathed a sigh of relief at this because the pair of them kept screeching during every match. At least now my ears could get a bit of a rest for a few matches. And if you're wondering how I knew all of this, for some reason everyone felt like commenting on the fights as they were happening. Not that I was complaining, I just thought it was weird. Unfortunately, the silence didn't last too long due to the fact that they woke up right after Tenten's humiliating defeat by Temari. It was equally unfortunate when Sakura came over to screech, "Sorry, I meant speak to me." Naruto. Why are you reading? You're supposed to be watching the matches. I winced at the shrillness of it once again. It was then that I felt a sudden urge to duck. No sooner did I do so, I feel a whoosh go over my head. Hey! You're not supposed to duck. I wouldn't need to if you didn't try to hit me. I had to fight the urge to look up at her. Instead, I continued to stare at the book, trying to look preoccupied with whatever story was in it. Where did you get the book anyways? Kakashi. This time there was no warning before I got whacked upside the head for no reason. Naruto. How dare you read that smut? It's not smut, I said as I rubbed my sore head. Read the title. I flashed the cover at her before making like I was reading it again, and then turned the page for good measure. Oh. And why are you reading a book when you never willingly touched one in your life? Kakashi said too. Something about freaking Guy out. I wasn't sure what I'd do if she asked anything else. Just as she started to ask another question, I heard someone clear their throat. Yo, Sakura. I heard you had your match already. How was it? Sensei asked, effectively shutting her up. Well, it wasn't that bad. Her versus Ino. Both of them made this huge deal out of it only for it to end in a double knockout, I said, simply getting a growl from her in the process. She should be proud of herself. After all, it was a tie. More like a double loss. To Ino. So probably not. Naruto. She was about to berate me about that when Shika was announced as the winner. About time. Thought it would take forever. Well, he's a Nara. They use their mind instead of their fists, so it tends to run a little on the long side, Kakashi answered. If you insist, I said with a shrug. All right. Who's next? Well, it's not Clucky versus the log. What? Both of us asked. If the two of you stop fighting and focus on the task at hand, you would have noticed a quite humorous glitch on the randomizing computer screen. It clearly states that the next opponents are Clucky versus the log. Sakura was silent as I almost busted a gut from laughing so hard. I struggled to get out the single questioning word. Why? Apparently she and one of the Uchihas had an argument as academy students about which was stronger, a chicken or our ever-present substitution log. It eventually evolved into what everyone liked to call Clucky versus the log. Which side did she take? Clucky, of course. Do you think any Uchiha would know about this argument? Probably not. He wouldn't want it to be common knowledge among his clan. Would Sasuke know about it? Maybe. After all, it was his father that started it. I could feel the fox-like grin spreading across my face as I put my book down for a moment. Clucky will win. Naruto, Sasuke is unconscious in a hospital room at the moment. This means he couldn't possibly hear you. Damn, and I wanted to start that up again. I brought my book up to look at it. Is Gigi done with his hissy fit yet? I want to know who's next. Naruto. The Hokage doesn't have hissy fits, you baka. If someone's cursing something out, it's usually called a hissy fit, right? I didn't think it changed if it was the Hokage doing the swearing. Hokage-sama would do no such thing. I can hear him swearing from here. He does look pretty upset, Kakashi backed me up. I heard Sakura taking a breath, getting ready to yell or something, when the Hokage cleared his throat. Next match, please. He sounded a bit self-conscious about his outburst. I listened to the computer click as it no doubt thought through the possible selections. The clicking eventually slowed to a stop and the competitors were announced. Uzumaki Naruto vs. Inuzuka Kiba. Yes. I accidentally throwing my book into the air due to my excitement. I'm pretty sure Kakashi caught it because I never heard it hit the floor. About damn time. I went to jump over the rail in front of me when a hand dropped onto my shoulder, stopping me. Naruto, I don't think you're ready for this. Oh, come on, sensei. He's too strong for you. Like hell he is. He is right now. You need to forfeit. No. Naruto. No. I'm fighting Kiba and there's nothing you can do to stop me. There was a pause in the conversation before he continued. We'll see about that. Kakashi looked at the boy, seeing the stubborn look in his eyes, making it undoubtedly clear that there was no talking him out of it. Instead, he decided to bring his student to the Hokage, knowing that if he convinced him that Naruto isn't well enough to fight, then he could pull the boy out himself. So he grabbed Naruto's arm and shined down to the platform below. Hokage-sama. Naruto's not fit to fight Kiba. He is still feeling the effects of the last test. He kept a strong grip on the boy's arm as he struggled. Are you sure? What specifically are these ill effects? I believe he's still suffering from a slight concussion from running into the tree. He's still very dizzy to the point he was having trouble standing only half an hour ago. You don't say. But don't you think it's a bit late to be bringing this up? The Cyclops became confused, shooting a questioning look at the still writhing boy before turning back to the Hokage. After all, he's already on the floor. The man's lone eye got wide as he looked back at the floor to see a grinning Naruto. Then he looked at the boy who had just stopped fighting long enough to acquire that same grin before poofing out of existence. Begin! The proctor shouted as his student's smile widened. Kakashi looked at his student, unsure if the boy was up to this. As the two competitors taunted each other, he just hoped Naruto knew what he was doing. Few minutes earlier, I waited for Kakashi to poof away before coming out of my hiding spot behind Choji, who was conveniently walking by at the time. Thanks, man. No problem, he said, munching on his ever-present bag of chips. I reached out to where I knew the railing was, finding it first try, then hopped over it. Unfortunately, I had no idea how far down the floor was, so when my feet hit it sooner than I thought, I ended up doing a faceplant into the tile floor. Don't tell me he knocked himself out again, I heard Kiba say as I lay on the ground for a moment, still stunned. Does that mean I win? I'm good, I called, climbing back to my feet. Damn. I kept Kiba's location in mind as I hurried towards the sound of our proctor coughing. Are you afraid to face me, Kiba? I asked once I turned to face him. I heard him start to say something, but I interrupted him. Who am I kidding? Of course you are. Hey Proctor, can we get this started? Eager to get you butt hooped? Yeah, right. I could defeat you blindfold. Databoyo. Begin. The proctor shouted over our banter. Time to put your money where your mouth is, Kiba said as I heard his feet shift on the floor, probably into a taijutsu stance. So I did the same, not wanting to be taken by surprise. Don't know why I'd do that. I'd rather eat ramen. It was about then that I heard the sound of something that could only be him jumping, probably at me. My theory was confirmed when a fist connected with my face. Note to self, when his feet leave the ground, move, I thought as I got to my feet again. Is that all you got, dog breath? I grinned like a man, and just to throw him off. Konohamaru hits harder than you. You know, I was going to be fair and let you think you had a fighting chance. But now I think I'm just going to finish you off right now. Good. I don't want your charity anyways. Ninja art, beast mimicry. Kiba shouted as his hands thudded to the ground, making me wonder what he was up to. Here I come, Kiba said, his voice sounding on the verge of a growl. I'm guessing it was some sort of transformation because I could hear the slightly shocked crowd commenting on how bad I was going to lose. I was just about to yell at them when I heard his feet and his hands leave the ground. I was trying to decide whether to dodge or to see what he got when he rammed what had to be his shoulder into my gut, making my mind up for me. I was then sent flying across the room before my reunion with the stone floor. As I struggled to get my bearing, I could hear Kiba trying to talk the proctor into ending the match, saying that I wasn't getting up anytime soon. What really ticked me off though was that dumb proctor was actually considering it. So I climbed to my feet, ignoring Kiba's conversation, only listening enough to get a fix on his location. Then, before he could even turn his attention back on me, I tackled him, wanting to share the ground's hospitality with my opponent. I used the momentum of the tackle to roll past him and onto my feet. I stayed crouched close to the ground, no doubt facing away from him, but it's not like it mattered. Don't underestimate me, asshole. I must have took him by surprise, if his silence had anything to say about it. Come on, are you really that weak or are you just going easy on me? He growled at me, most likely trying to glare as well. You want no mercy, I'll give ya no mercy. Akamaru. To me. I heard small, padded feet rushing to its master's side. I stood up and turned to face him. Seriously? You're really bringing your puppy into this? I gave him a disbelieving look to tick him off even more. This puppy that's going to be your downfall. His voice clearly telling me that I was succeeding. Let's get him, Akamaru. I heard them charge at me, their feet leaving the ground for a moment before they started running. Something hit the ground in front of me, before making a poof sound. Then the air began to smell strongly of smoke, which kind of confused me. Well, until I figured out that it had to have been a smoke pellet in an attempt to obscure my vision. I almost laughed at the thought. It was soon after this that something told me to duck, so just like earlier with Sakura, I listened to this gut feeling just in time to feel his swing pass right overhead. Not a second after I was told to move again, this time to the side. I did so right before a pair of teeth clamped together right where my arm used to be. After dodging like this a couple times, I figured out what was keeping me safe. It wasn't some sixth sense or anything, it was actually my other four senses that I normally never paid attention to in a fight. I was able to avoid his attacks so easily because, even though I couldn't see his throws coming, there were other indicators. A whisper of fabric as Kiba moved, the taste of smoke thickening or thinning as the air was disturbed, even, oddly enough, the smell of dog as Akamaru neared. It all told me exactly where the duo was, and exactly how to avoid them. Soon after this revelation they stopped attacking, opting, instead, to stand in front of me panting. I couldn't hold back a laugh this time as the smoke soon faded from my senses. How? Kiba asked over my laughter. How what? How did you avoid us? I'm a ninja, I answered condescendingly, even though I had no clue where this was going. So? Ninjas fight ninjas, I said, my mind trying desperately to come up with something fast enough to say it. Ninjas are supposed to be invisible. So fighting with only your eyes is stupid. Don't you agree? When he didn't answer, I did so for him. You should, after all you're always using your nose. How? How do I know? I smiled at his confusion. A ninja's intuition. You guessed, didn't you? Enough about that now, I believe it's my turn. I smirked evilly before crossing my index fingers. Shadow Clone Jutsu. I could tell there was something ruining what little chakra control I had, because I could feel the drain in chakra even after the 10 clones I made. Whatever that long-haired freak did to me the other day, it wasn't good and I should probably get that looked at as well. But now wasn't the time for this, I had to focus on the fight. My clones grinned before charging as one towards the enemy. Of course, none of them could see either, but it was strange. Every time Kiba and Akamaru made one poof away, it made it easier to find the pair. I thought on it for a moment before deciding to use it now and figuring out later. So I made more clones, spamming the field despite the extra chakra strain. I was going to win this fight if it was the last thing in due. I need to prove it to Sensei, and myself, that this handicap wouldn't hold me back. I lashed out where I knew they were and came into contact with something fluffy. Unsure whether it was Akamaru or just Kiba's jacket, I grabbed it. The dog yelped, causing me to smirk. I didn't particularly like hurting Kiba's Ninkin, but if it helped me win the match, then there was really no other choice. Surrender, Kiba! I yelled, holding the dog up by its paws. I thought they were his front paws, but there was no real way of knowing. Or what? You'll hurt my dog? Maybe. Akamaru can take care of himself. His bag rustled like he was searching for something in it. Akamaru. Catch. Something flew through the air, until the dog I was holding caught it in his jaws. The canine started growling, his fur becoming spikier in my grasp. I lost my grip on him, dropping him to the floor. He darted to his master's side right before I heard a poof of a transformation being performed. Man-beast clone. From the gasp in the audience, something happened visually that shocked the peanut gallery. I pretended to be shocked like everyone else, even though I had no idea what was so surprising. So just to be prepared, I created a bunch of clones just as a set of feet left the ground. I had them surround me like a shield as the pair of them ran my way. Something was off about their footsteps, but I couldn't place what it was. It wasn't until my clones started disappearing and I started getting vague impressions of being punched by Kiba several times that I realized what was wrong. There were no paw steps. It was 2 sets of Kiba-sized footsteps. I was surprised at this for a moment, which was just enough time for them to take out the rest of my clones and throw me into a wall. Through my shock, I could hear the cracking of cement behind me as my back exploded in pain. I had no idea how, but he was now 5 times stronger than he was before. See? This match will be over before you can even say I give. The dog boy sounded so confident in his own words that even I was on the threshold of believing him. But just to make sure you aren't going to pop back up again. The boy went quiet, his feet shifting on the ground as I sat there, trying to get my body to start moving. Fawn over fawn! He shouted, and I pretty much knew I was in trouble. Even if I didn't know what that meant, I knew that if he had that much confidence in this technique, then it must be pretty powerful. It was only a couple seconds after this that I got nailed in the chest, causing several of my ribs to snap into pieces. My breath was knocked out of me, and even as I fought to get it back, I found it oddly difficult to do so. My head was spinning and all sounds were dulled. I could barely hear Kiba talking to the proctor again. But I wasn't giving up now, not after all that happened. I'd been through more today than I have in my whole life just to fight for my spot as Chunin. There was no way that I was going to let some mutt take it. So before the proctor could call the match, I struggled to my feet even though I could barely breathe. Hey, what are you doing? Just give it a rest, will ya? You've already been beaten and you know it. I winced as my hearing snapped back into focus just in time for his yell. Not yet, I struggled to say. Just those 2 words making me cough, which, in turn, caused my chest to feel like I was being stabbed. You can barely breathe. Just stop before you get seriously hurt. No. I wanted so bad to give him a long rant about how I never give up, but I just couldn't. Naruto! You're being stupid! Just give up before you die! Sakura screeched from the stands. No! Not done! I started coughing again, the taste of blood flooded my mouth this time. I knew I had to end this quick before I passed out, and this was all for nothing. I put my hands in my favorite hand sign. Fine, I don't care if you give in. But there's no way I'm going to let you attack again. Fawn over fawn! I heard the 2 of them fly through the air towards me as I thought quickly. Oh, how lucky I was that they didn't find my hedged clone on the other side of the arena. So, I quickly preformed a substitution with him. Though it disoriented me, it was worth it to hear them give a surprised gasp as my clone poofed out of existence soon after their attack. Lucky for me, my disorientation didn't last long after he destroyed it. I soon got a faint feeling of being hit with that Jutsu again, as well as knowledge concerning where I was compared to him. Shadow Clone Jutsu. I let a smirk spread across my face as their feet shuffled on the floor quickly. I made as many clones as I could, which, if I had to guess, was somewhere between 50 and 100. Not many comparatively, but not bad for someone as injured as I was. I could almost feel the duo's shock as he was surrounded by so many of me, especially since I was quite sure they had the same smirk I had. Sick I told them quietly, but they all got the message as hundreds of feet charged at one place. At first I mostly heard poofs, but the more that were taken out, the easier it was for the rest of my clones to pinpoint his exact location and start winning. It didn't take long for the poofing of disappearing clones to be replaced with that of Kiba and Akamaru being hit. And it wasn't too long after that they were knocked out of the ring and didn't get up. Time out, the proctor called. I could hear footsteps walking over to where Kiba had fallen. He was probably checking the other boys' vitals to make sure I didn't go overboard. Kiba is unconscious and therefore cannot continue the match. The winner is Uzumaki Naruto. I smiled as a cheer went up around the room. It was mostly my clones celebrating our accomplishment, but I was able to pick out a few voices cheering that I knew weren't mine. I recognized Choji, Irika-sensei, Shikamaru to some extent. He isn't very loud to being with, and I might have heard Hinata, but there's no way to be sure. Then for some reason I could hear that Taki girl louder than everyone, shouting something like, "Now that was a fight." It was then that my clones decided that it was time to go and poofed away, leaving me with an overwhelming exhaustion. It was also about now that my body remembered the fact that it was having difficulty breathing and decided it didn't want to stand up anymore. My knees buckled and I fell forward. I readied myself to hit the ground when I was suddenly grabbed around my torso. I yelped as pain stabbed my chest again. But before I could flinch away from the arm, it moved to my shoulders, in order to sit me gently on the floor. "Nice job, Naruto," Kakashi said, obviously being the person that helped me. He sounded sort of proud. "You did very well considering." "Thanks." I tried to say more but ended up starting to cough once again. "Let's get you to a medic so you can be fixed up." "Sounds good," I rasped once I got my breath back, or at least as much of it as I could right now. His arm disappeared, but before I could fall one way or the other, I was picked up in what seemed to be the bridal style, though his one arm was more on my shoulders to keep the pressure off my ribs. "We'll take him from here," a voice said off to my left. I felt someone tried to take me. I wouldn't have really cared much if they hadn't tried to do so by touching my already hurt ribcage. I yelped again just as Kakashi took a step back and away from the other arm. "That's alright, I got him. Just show me where to go." "Follow the stretcher." That was all I heard before my mind decided that it was also too tired for any of this, and I started to doze. I was barely aware of the fact that we had started moving or that we stopped soon after for Kakashi to speak with a few people. I'm pretty sure I completely fell asleep right then, because the next thing I knew I was lying on a fluffy board, or a very uncomfortable hospital bed. For a moment, I thought I was alone, until a pair of hands, radiating some sort of heat, touched my ribs through my mesh shirt. Not knowing who this person was, I immediately panicked and tried to get away from them. "It's alright, Naruto, it's just a medic. They're not going to hurt you, even if they wanted to." Kakashi's voice seemed relatively close by. I nodded in response, but I guess I still looked tense. "Medic-san, can you give us a couple minutes? I'll call you in when he's less nervous." "If you insist." The hands disappeared and then there were footsteps leading away from me until a door clicked shut. I relaxed knowing the man left the room. "Naruto, you know they're trying to help you." They surprised me. I didn't think anyone was there. I found it a bit easier to speak, so I guess the medic already helped a bit. "I figured that much." "How long was I out?" "Only a couple minutes." "Oh, okay." I was quiet for a bit, before I thought of something. "What did the medic do?" "He only had time to keep your ribs from piercing your lungs." "He didn't get near my eyes?" "Not in the slightest." "Good." I let out the breath that I didn't know I was holding. "They're going to find out, aren't they?" "No, they're worried about your ribs, not your eyes." I heard a faint rustle of fabric but didn't think much of it. "But as for the rest of the world, I believe I've come up with an appropriate solution." "Really? What?" I was starting to feel tired again, and I sounded like it, even to my own ears. Heck, it barely sounded like I was asking a question at all. This was the only answer I got before he was slipped something over my head, so whatever it was, rested over my eyes. My hand went up to touch it, feeling around the edges of the object. "Goggles?" "Yep." I could practically hear him smiling. But not just any goggles. They belonged to a very close friend of mine, my old teammate actually. He was the one that said that those who don't protect their friends are worse than trash. "That's nice. I have my own, you know." "Yes, but I thought you'd like these ones," he told me, happily. That, and I think he'd like the fact that they're being used again. Especially when it's by someone with such a similar nindo to his own. "But they're orange." "Really?" "Yep, the lenses are orange, so if you get your sight back you'll be seeing everything though in orange hue." "Awesome." I tried to sound excited, couldn't. "Go to sleep, Naruto. You need your rest." "But you're safe here. No one will find out about your eyes while you sleep." "Okay." The next thing I knew, I was out. One day later. My eyes snapped open, and having forgotten my predicament, I was startled not seeing anything. It wasn't till I shot up, looking around for something other than black, did I remember what happened. As if to remind me that things were less than good, a small ache started right behind my eyes. I shook off my thoughts before they could turn negative, instead opting to figure out how my body was feeling. My ribs were a lot better than the last time I checked. Just to make sure, I pressed a hand against them, and though there was still a bit of pain, it wasn't nearly as bad as it used to be. I could tell that my chakra was still messed up, but there was nothing I could really do about that. I was still exhausted, which either could be because of my screwy chakra, or adding to it. Either way, it wasn't much to be worried about either. So I laid back down on whatever I was laying on before. It was about then that I realized that I had no idea where I was. And since I couldn't exactly look, I had to guess. Well, my clothes were different, a long top made of some scratchy fabric. I don't think there were any pants with the ensemble, but that was kind of hard to tell because there was a sheet over me. By this alone, I could pretty much guess where I was, especially considering there was only one place I knew that smelled so strongly of antiseptic. Realizing I was taking up residence in the local hospital, I tensed. I didn't like the hospital, and they didn't really like me either. They never tried to help me unless ordered to by the Hokage. Usually they would either ignore me or try to stunt my healing process. Lucky for me, the same reason they hated me was the reason I didn't need to come here as often. QB has taken care of a lot of the injuries that should have ensured a trip to the hospital, though I still ended up here a fair amount due to lack of consciousness. Unfortunately, this seemed to be one of those times. I sat up, tossing the sheets off me before trying to get out of bed. I had just jumped down when my right arm was yanked back towards the bed by my elbow. As I stood unsteadily on my feet, I used my other hand to feel what was attached to my arm. It took me a couple seconds to figure out that it was actually in four. I was just reaching to pull it out when a hand stopped me. Startled, I jumped back onto the bed, scrambling across till my head came in contact with the wall. Naruto, it's me. I relaxed at the sound of Kakashi's voice. You really have to stop being so startled when people sneak up on you. I'm not. I got poked in my head, right where I had hit it, making me yelp a bit. You sure? Because you look pretty nervous to me. Don't like hospitals, I mumbled, rubbing my sore head. Smells funny. Can't argue with that. He sounded like he agreed, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't completely convinced. I heard a squeak off to my right, and I could only assume that it was from a chair. Anyways, let's talk about your test. But I won it. What more is there to talk about? You weren't listening to the explanation before the matches, were you? In my defense, I had a lot on my mind at the time. I'm sure you did. Anyways, those were the prelims. You now have a month to train for finals. What? Why didn't he tell us before? He did, you weren't listening. Oh yeah? I heard him sigh, probably shaking his head like he usually does when I do something like that. So sensei, what awesome jutsus are you going to teach me? I'm not. I blinked, trying to figure out if he was joking with me. I have to train Sasuke for his match against one of the Suna shinobi. What? Why? And how does he know his opponent? Oh yeah, you were unconscious for that. I gave him the note a look and he continued. They pulled numbers out of a hat and put it into some elaborate graph thing. He has to go against Gaara, the redhead with the gourd. What's so dangerous about him? His last opponent, Rock Lee, is in intensive care right now being treated. They're unsure if he can continue being a ninja. Oh. I looked away, feeling bad for the spandex-wearing ninja. After all, he was the dead last of his year like me. He would have killed him if Guy hadn't stepped in. So I'm going to have to train myself, aren't I? Not necessarily. I was able to call in a few favors and got you a teacher for the month. How's that supposed to help? I didn't even bother with pretending to look at him. They'll probably try to teach me by showing me stuff, and we both know that won't work unless I miraculously get my sight back. Yes, we haven't figured out if your situation is permanent yet, have we? He didn't even phrase it as a question. Well, it seems pretty permanent to me, I said sourly, but was obviously ignored as I heard the chair get pushed back and a pair of feet padding across the ground. I'm going to see if you can get signed out of this place. His footsteps began to lead away from me. If so, we're going to go visit my friend. The medical nin that lives outside the village? Yep. If there's anything that can be done for you, then she'll at least know about it. Be back soon. The door clicked shut, leaving me alone in the hospital room for who knows how long. With Kakashi's tardy habits, I wouldn't be surprised if soon meant 5 hours from now after he's flirted with every nurse in the building, then blame it on a cat again. I debated about just ditching him and leaving through the window, but considering I didn't even know if this room had a window, I decided that probably wouldn't be the best decision right now. Instead, I figured it would be better to at least find my clothes and get dressed because there was no way I was meeting someone new in a hospital gown. First checking if my new goggles were in place, and finding that they actually were, I inched to the side of the bed in search for the nightstand I knew would be there. After finding it, I used my hands to check for my clothes. Throughout the 2 minutes it took to search the small table, I spilt a cup of water, jammed my fingers against the wall, and almost knocked my forehead protector to the floor, but didn't find my clothes. It took me a minute to tie it in place and make sure it was right side up before resuming my search for my clothes. So I began crawling to the end of the bed, thinking it might be there somewhere. But before I got there my hand met empty air as my legs slipped off the edge of the bed, making me tumble to the floor. I laid there for a bit, my head spinning and my arm aching from my foot being yanked out in the fall. "Itai," I murmured before righting myself so I was sitting on the floor. I heard several pairs of feet hurry down the hallway, giving me a bad feeling as my door shot open with a bang, those feet skidding to a halt at the same time. Hi. I tried to sound cheerful even though I had no clue who was there. Though I was pretty sure it was a flock of nurses that heard the thump and came running before they realized whose room it was. "Nice weather we're having, huh?" "Uzumaki," one of them shouted, making my smile fade. Just from her voice I knew which nurse was at the in front of them all. She was the witchiest nurse in the whole hospital, at least to me. To the other patients she was this sweet old lady that does everything she can for them. To me she was one of the main reasons I hate hospitals. She always gave me as many shots as she could get away with and the largest needles she could get her hands on. She was also the one that always stopped me when I tried to escape this horrid place. Whenever she caught me, she'd slap me hard enough to leave a bruise and was always able to pass it off as an injury I caused myself from a fall or something. I would try to tell Gigi, but all the nurses would back her up even though they knew the truth. "You are trying to escape again, aren't you?" I tried to shrink into the floor, suddenly wishing I knew that headhunter jutsu that Kaka-sensei used on the team months back. When I didn't answer, she continued shouting, making my head hurt more from her sheer volume. "Well, are you? Answer me, brat." "I am not. Really?" I insisted as I heard most of the feet start leaving the room, leaving me alone with the loud woman. I just fell out of bed. "Bull." Her voice flat as her volume was lowered slightly. Not enough to make a difference, but it was a bit better. "Your headband is already on and your four is mysteriously missing from your arm. You honestly think that I believe that you aren't trying to escape?" The four ripped out when I tried to explain, but she wasn't listening to me. She never did. "I don't think so. That's not going to work this time, brat." Her volume started raising again, making the pain in my head grow even worse. "You're always trying to escape before you're even recovered." "Well, maybe if you weren't such a bitch I wouldn't have to." I had wanted to say that for a while, but the tense silence that came after told me that I really shouldn't have. "How dare you, you little..." I flinched away, knowing what was coming, but when the sound of skin hitting skin reached my ears, I became extremely confused at the lack of pain in my cheek. "That's my student you're trying to hit." Kakashi's voice sounding colder than a steel katana left outside in a blizzard. Not to mention, he is a registered ninja, which means the laws concerning assaulting shinobi still applies to him. I'd think twice before even getting near him again. Is that clear? I heard her hum as a pair of heels trot away through the door before slamming it angrily. "Are you alright?" He was sounding normal. "Yeah." It was silent for a bit before I spoke up again. "I hate her." "I can see why." An arm reached under mine and helped me to my feet. I was a bit wobbly, but I was able to stand on my own, so he released me. "Is it safe to say that she is another reason you hate the hospital?" I nodded lightly in response, not wanting to irritate my headache. It still wasn't going away, in fact it was growing more severe now that she was gone. Kakashi was saying something else, but I didn't hear what it was as the pain just kept increasing. I sat down and removed my goggles, then pushed my hands against my eyes, trying to relieve it even just a bit. "Naruto?" Kakashi's voice asked, sounding worried. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Are you alright?" "My head hurts," I murmured to him. "Right behind my eyes." "How bad?" "Bad." A pile of folded cloth was placed on my lap that felt like a very familiar fabric. "Get dressed, we're going to Rin's as soon as you're done." "Rin?" "My medic-ning friend. I'm going to talk to the Hokage in the meantime, and see about replacing a certain nurse we both now know and hate." There was a bit of a swoosh that could only be from a shunshin. I smirked at that, hoping he was more successful than me. I sat there for a couple moments before convincing myself to let go of my eyes and figure out which piece of clothing was which. When Kakashi came back, 5 minutes later, Naruto still wasn't finished getting dressed. He had his pants on right, but his t-shirt was backwards with one arm through his collar along with his head. He had apparently stopped halfway through the process, and was now laying on the bed with some of the sheet bunched up in his hands, pressing them against his eyes again. It's gotten worse, hasn't it? He knelt down beside the bed, studying his student worriedly. The boy nodded into the blanket, not even speaking. All right, then let's get this shirt fixed and we'll leave. Rin will know what to do, promise. Kakashi became worried when Naruto sat up, his fingers reluctantly releasing the sheet, but didn't give any other response than that. Kakashi swiftly fixed the shirt and helped him into his jacket before picking the boy up on his back and shooting out the window faster than a flying kunai. He ran across the rooftops, reaching the edge of the village in record time. Seeing the gate, he dropped to the ground in front of the pair everyone called the Eternal Chunin. They jumped in surprise, but before they could start asking questions, Kakashi started answering them. Naruto and I are off to see a friend of mine, we'll be back tomorrow. Yes, the Hokage already knows of the trip and approved it. And no, Naruto's not feeling all that well, but he'll be fine when we come back. Ja-any. Before either of them had opened their mouths to say anything, the two were out of sight. He needed to get there as soon as possible. He didn't like seeing Naruto in such pain. He was supposed to be a happy, energetic person, but right now he was so lifeless it was like carrying a doll on his back. The only thing that assured him that Naruto was still there was the boy's hands gripping his sensei's shirt sleeves and his face buried in his flask jacket. It was only a couple minutes later that the pair landed in front of a wooden shack big enough for a couple people to live comfortably. They dropped to the ground, the older walking swiftly through the front door. Rin-chan, you here? Kakashi called, hoping she wasn't out collecting herbs or something. In the kitchen, Kakashi-kun, a voice called back from down the hall. The silver-haired man hid a sigh of relief before walking through the living room towards her. He stepped through the doorway into a simple kitchen to see the brunette grinding herbs. Her relatively short hair was being held back in a small ponytail to keep it out of the way. She was dressed in a light green short-sleeved shirt and a pair of black baggy pants with an apron to keep the herbs from making a mess of her clothes. I haven't seen you in a while. I thought you had that new genin team to take care of. She smiled, looking up from her work but in no way stopping. Anyways, what brings you here today? Him, he said, nodding his head towards the student on his back. Her eyes went wide when she caught sight of the small blonde as her hands finally ceased. Is that Naruto? Yes, he has a bit of a problem that I'd like to get your opinion about. What's wrong? She slipped her apron off and set it on the countertop before moving to the boy's side. It's kind of complicated. Well, let's go to the guest room and you can tell me what happened. She ushered him out of the room and down the hall to another. He went in and tried to put Naruto on the bed, but the boy was so wrapped up in the pain that Kakashi couldn't get his hands unclenched from his sleeves. The silver-haired man thought of trying to coax his student into releasing him, but he doubted that Naruto could make out words right now. Rin, do you mind? He gave her a pleading look. She nodded, flashing through some hand signs before placing a hand on the blonde's head, knocking the poor boy out. She helped Kakashi set him on the bed, freezing once she caught sight of the goggles. Those are Obito-kun's. Yeah, long story, but he earned them. Kakashi took the goggles off his head and placing them on the nightstand. But what you need to look at is under them. When Naruto came back from the second test, I noticed his eyes weren't tracking right. Somehow he lost his sight the night before and we can't figure out what caused it. That, and as of a couple minutes ago, he gained an intense pain behind his eyes, which was putting him in the state you saw a moment ago. Then why did you come here? The Konoha hospital is a lot more prepared for this type of thing, Rin pointed out as she began treating him anyways. I hardly have the technology for any of this. He wants to keep it a secret so he doesn't lose his ninja rank. That, and I doubt they treat him very well. He doesn't like them, and I saw firsthand that they don't like him either. She nodded, her hands glowing green as she held them over the boy's eyes. She closed her own so she could focus on what she couldn't see. As she did so, Kakashi stayed quiet to keep from disturbing her concentration. Several minutes passed by before the green glow faded and she looked up at him, her gaze telling the silver-haired man that the news she had for him was grim. What is it? I'd rather wait to say once he's woken up. That way I don't have to say it more than once. That bad? Yeah, she answered simply. But I was able to ease the pain so when he regains consciousness, it won't be so debilitating. Just tell me one thing, will he be able to see again? She was quiet for a moment, biting her lip as she decided whether or not to tell him. I don't know. 1 hour later. My hand shot up to my eyes as soon as I woke up, surprised by the lack of both the pain and my new goggles. Where are my goggles? I asked out loud, sure that either Kakashi or his friend, Rin, was in the room. Something scraped against wood to my left, making my head turn towards the sound. Here you go, a sweet voice said as something was placed in my lap. I picked it up, recognizing the increasingly familiar feel of my goggles. Thanks. I grinned as I sat up and slid them back on my head, finding it easier than tying my headband. You're Kaka-sensei's friend, right? Yes, I am. Her voice didn't hold the resentment that most adults do, which was a bit refreshing. My name is Rin. Nice to meet you, Rin-san. I'm Naruto. I held my hand out to shake, remembering the bit of manners that Gigi tried to teach me years ago. It's not that I didn't learn it, I just didn't put it into practice because none of the adults I was introduced to deserved it. With a bit of a chuckle, she took my hand and shook it. Well, it's nice to meet you too. Is Kaka-sensei in here? I asked after a moment. I don't think so, but I've been wrong twice before. He can be really quiet sometimes. No, he's in the kitchen cooking some dinner. He can cook? He's lived by himself for a long time, it was either learn or eat out a lot. What about instant ramen? You can't eat that all the time. I do. It's not very good for you. What are you saying? It's great food. I was just about to give her a long lecture on the wonders of ramen when I heard footsteps coming down the hallway, followed by a delicious smell that made me halt. Unfortunately, it wasn't ramen, but whatever it was certainly edible at the very least. Kaka-sensei. What's that? A door squeaked open, intensifying the smell slightly. Grilled cheese, he answered, sounding amused. I figured you needed something relatively healthy. Plus, you have to really try to make a mess if you're eating a sandwich. Why would you care if I made a mess? I followed his footsteps as he walked across the floor before he placed the plate on my lap. Because I'd be the one cleaning it up. It smells good. The food wasn't hot, so I figured it was one of the first out of the pan for my convenience. But that didn't matter to me. Food was food, and I felt like I haven't eaten in days. Which got me thinking as I ate, has it really been that long since I had eaten the ramen after the first test? At this point, I didn't even know how long it has been since then. So instead of torturing myself with unanswered questions, I asked Kakashi. Sensei? The air tensed as the pair stopped chewing their food. This brought up a whole other batch of questions that I decided to ignore for the time being. If being blind had any advantages, it was that you could pretend not to notice the mood in the room and no one would know the difference. How long has it been since the prelims? Finally decided that you wanted to know how long you were out, huh? Kakashi asked with a chuckle that sounded kind of relieved. I nodded. 1 day. A day? Yep, it could have been worse. If it weren't for Fluffy, you'd still be out. But I'm so far behind. Everyone else has already started training and I don't even know who my sensei is yet. Relax, everyone else are still recovering from their wounds as well. I doubt anyone has started training yet. Oh yeah? We settled into a tense silence as we ate. Eventually I couldn't take it anymore and spoke up. Alright, what's going on here? I demanded after I finished my sandwich. What do you mean? Rin was clearly pretending not to know what I was talking about. You two have been walking on eggshells since I woke up. There was a surprised silence between the two that got on my nerves. Just because I'm blind doesn't mean I don't notice these things. Might as well spill. Kakashi's chair creaking like he was reclining. I don't quite remember him sitting down in one, but that was probably because of the food. Can't put it off forever. I know. Rin sounded sad as she spoke. I examined your eyes while you were out. Is that why my goggles were off? Yes. She took a nervous breath before continuing. Anyways, the eyes themselves are undamaged. Everything worked like it was supposed to until I got to the optic nerve. The nerve was, for the most part, severed a few centimeters behind the eyes. It's not completely detached, just enough so you can't see through them. Did you understand that, Naruto? Kakashi asked after a silent moment. I think so. The connection between my eyes and my brain was cut, right? Yeah, but my question is how? There was a bit of medical chakra still remaining on the nerve, so I'm pretty sure we can safely assume it was done with a medical jutsu of some type. So it was done purposefully. Though Rin said nothing, I had the feeling that she nodded. Is it reversible? Not as far as I know. The nerve could probably be reconnected if it wasn't separated by chakra. If it was from regular wound, we could try to patch them, or, if we had to, grow them back. The person that did this, did it in such a way that it practically ensures that they can't be fixed by someone like me. Someone like Tsunade might be able to, but even then I doubt it would be much of a chance. The pair of them continued talking. I think they were trying to figure out who had the skill and opportunity to do this to me. But wasn't listening. I let their voices fade from my hearing, not wanting to hear anymore. Even though I didn't show it, I was secretly hoping that she would be able to do something, that this was reversible. Now that I knew it wasn't, that bit of hope fled, taking my resolve with me. Without my sight, I knew, despite my nature, that it would be practically impossible to achieve my goal of Hokage. I'd end up risking my life every time I went on a mission, even if it was just simple D ranks. I would be useless to the village. There was practically no point to staying a ninja anymore. I might as well let the civilians kill me. Naruto? My name coupled with a gentle hand on my shoulder got me out of my thoughts. Are you alright? Yeah. I flashed a smile at her even though I didn't feel like grinning. I'm fine. There was silence before she spoke up again. I'm sorry. Her voice sounding close to tears. I wish I could fix this, but I just don't have the skills to do something so complicated. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes for a moment to collect my thoughts. I didn't have time to be upset about this. I only had a month before the finals. If I became upset about this now, all it would do is make me lose valuable time. I had to stay focused. It's not your fault, I said after I opened my eyes to the blank world around me. Speaking of fault, Kakashi said, interrupting whatever I was going to say next. I might know whose it is. Naruto, you said earlier that you ran into Kabuto the day before, right? Yeah, what of it? Before you woke up, I caught him in Sasuke's hospital room prepared to kill him. I stopped him, but he killed all the guards stationed there with some high-quality medical ninjutsu. Kabuto? But he's a Konoha ninja. Why would he try to kill Sasuke? I don't think you understand what I'm getting at, Naruto. Kakashi sighed before continuing. Kabuto was the only one in the whole exams that has shown himself to be well versed in medical jutsu. He's also the only one with the opportunity to use said jutsus against you. I'm saying he's probably the one responsible for blinding you. But he was practically harmless, for a ninja. A ninja's greatest weapon is deception, Kakashi said gently. If it makes you feel any better, I didn't think it could have been him either. It doesn't, I muttered. I heard him take a breath to say more when I interrupted him. Can we change the subject, please? If you want. Why did it hurt this morning but not when it happened? He fused chakra into the nerve when he cut it. Right now, the Kyuubi's chakra is acting like antibodies and attacking it. Apparently your Baiju doesn't like foreign chakra too much. That's where the pain was coming from, the two types of chakra fighting each other. It didn't hurt before because the chakra had yet to recognize the intruder, and after it did, it took time for it to get there. It had to struggle past the seal and through your chakra pathways, all which took until you started feeling the pain. So the Kyuubi chakra was trying to get rid of the other stuff? Yes. If it did get rid of it, would I be able to get my sight back? There was silence for a moment, as she thought. Probably not. Any Baiju chakra is highly poisonous, especially the Kyuubi's. Even if it is able to get rid of the other chakra, the damage it would have done to the nerve would be too great to fix. Optic nerves are not meant to contain such potent chakra, they're just too delicate. Why doesn't it hurt now? Because I used my medical chakra to make it seem that the foreign chakra is actually yours. As long as it feels like yours, the Baiju chakra won't attack it. But it won't last forever. You'll have to come back here in about 2 months for me to repeat the procedure. You should have just let the Kyuubi get rid of it, I whispered after a moment. But there could be something that can be done that I don't know about. Letting the Kyuubi destroy your optic nerve would ruin any chance you might have had with it like this. But who knows where I'll be in 2 months? I was getting more nervous as I spoke. I know you said you're not sure if something can be done, but wouldn't it be easier to keep me knocked out as the Kyuubi did its thing? There are better medical ninjas than me, Naruto. They might know about something I don't, and I wouldn't want to inconvenience them if they do. But I'm not going to tell anyone else about this. You don't know that. I do. I'm not going to lose my ninja status for a maybe. I turned away from the pair of them stubbornly. There's something else, isn't there? Kakashi asked after a moment. I pretended not to hear him. Naruto, are you scared of something? No, I'm not. My head snapped back towards him. I'm not scared of anything. Ghosts. The word itself made me shudder, which pretty much proved me wrong. Now, what's worrying you? It hurt, I said quietly, not even sure if he heard me. It really hurt. I don't want to feel that ever again. You won't have to. A hand was placed gently on my shoulder. I guessed it was Rin because Kakashi's hand was bigger than that. Just stop by once every 2 months and you won't have to worry. But I don't want to do that all my life. No offense, but I just can't. Then just do so for 6 months. If you don't find someone that can help in 6 months, then I'll do as you said and keep you unconscious until the foreign chakra is gone. I could almost hear the smile in her voice. Does that sound better? Yeah, I guess. Well, this is as good of a time to change the subject as any. Kakashi sounded oddly chipper. We need to chat about that fight of yours coming up. You haven't even told me who I'm going to fight. I glared in his direction, gaining a chuckle for my trouble. That's not what I want to talk about. He started to talk in a scolding tone which worried me. You told me you wouldn't disobey my orders, right? Yeah? Didn't I also say that you were not ready to fight Kiba? But I won. Yes, you did. And that's the only reason I haven't pulled you from the competition just yet. But I will, if my conditions aren't met. What conditions? I want you to come up with a substitute for your sight. What? You barely won against Kiba. Everyone that's in the next stage is a lot better than him. You're going to need to be able to see or come up with some way to make it like you're seeing so you have a chance of winning. But how am I supposed to do that? I don't know, that's what you're going to have to figure out over the next month. He paused before speaking again. Unfortunately, I'm going to be unavoidably preoccupied, so I won't be able to help you. But don't think I won't be able to know if you succeeded. I'll be waiting for you inside, ready to ask the question. What question? The question. He emphasized the with a finger tapping my nose. You mean that question? But of course. He spoke as if he was smiling. How else will I know? You'll have had a month to get used to it, so anything else wouldn't work. So you're serious about all this, huh? Damn straight. With your opponent, you're going to need all the help you can get. Wait, you know who I'm fighting? Didn't I tell you? He sounded way too innocent to be believed. No, you didn't. I don't even know who made it through to the next round. Well, as you know, Sasuke and Gaara made it through, as well as Shino, Kankuro, Temari, Shikamaru, and of course you. He spoke kind of slowly, like he was purposely avoiding what I wanted to hear. The ones you missed were Niji, Dizzo, and Fu. Who were they against? Niji versed his cousin Hinata, Dizzo went against Choji, and Fu was against Saku. How did Niji win? Hinata has that cool eye jutsu that can pretty much see everything. So does Niji, and he's older and more trained in its use. That, and he apparently holds a lot of resentment towards her. He almost killed her in that match. My mouth dropped open, stunned. It took a couple seconds to process this, one Konoha nin trying to kill another out of hate. The thought of it was horrifying. But it was even worse than that, and I told Kakashi as much. Who in their right mind would try to kill their family? I asked quietly, my voice rising in anger. That insane. A family is a gift, and all he's doing is treating them like dirt. Trust me, I know. I know about as well as you do. I gave him a funny look, before shaking my head and continued my thoughts. Someone should teach him that. Glad you think so. Because you'll have the chance to do just that. I looked at him, about to ask why when he answered it for me. Your first opponent is none other than Niji. I was silent for a bit, my mind processing what he was saying before I burst out laughing. What's so funny? Rin asked as I struggled to breathe. Niji's going to be a hard person to beat. Not only is he a genius in his clan's taijutsu, but he has his Byakugan down to almost an art. Exactly, I said between bouts of laughter. Niji's seeing everything. He's fighting me. The one that sees all versus the one that can't see at all. Heh, this is going to be fun. The next day. Kotetsu and Izumo were sitting at the table, Izumo trying to get his friend to play a card game to relieve his boredom when Kakashi appeared with Naruto on his back just like the day before, except this time the boy was completely awake. Hi Izumo. Hi Kotetsu. Naruto waved at them happily. Morning Naruto, Kakashi, Izumo said, trying to hide his confusion. Everything was taken care of, Kakashi informed them. I'm going to drop him back at his apartment, then I'll be right over to the Hokage like I'm supposed to be. You wouldn't mind letting him know, would you? You were supposed to be there an hour ago. We got lost in the forest where we ran into a hermit who took us captive. It was all we could to sneak out of there this morning. Surprisingly, this excuse came from Naruto. Good one, his sensei praised. Thanks, came up with it on the way here. I figured we'd need one. The whole black cat routine is getting kinda old. Watch it, that's my best excuse. But it's boring. There's no creativity in it. Well, then how about you come up with my excuses from now on? You know what, I think I just might. Excuse me, Izumo said, succeeding in getting the pair's attention. The Hokage's expecting you, Kakashi. My apologies. Do tell him I'll be there soon. And when he arrives 3 hours from now, his excuse will be that he discovered Tora in an alleyway and was engaged in a game of cat and mouse, where he was unfortunately the mouse. Thanks, Naruto. He tipped an imaginary hat towards the guards in a sort of thanks. Ja-ni. There was a slight poof as the two left via Shunshin. The guards looked at each other for several seconds. So, who's going to explain all this to the third? They were silent for another moment before competing in a swift round of Jankenpan, to which Izumo lost. Damn, he whispered, as Kotetsu-shun shined away as well. I really wanted to get away from this desk. Well, here you are. Kakashi put me down so I was standing on the ground. I knew I was in my apartment just by the familiar smell, which was something along the lines of old wood and ramen. Sure you'll be alright alone here? It's my house. If I can't figure out how to get around here, then I might as well just hand over my forehead protector. Naruto. But seriously, sensei, I'll be fine. I waved a hand dismissively as I headed in the direction of my kitchen. I'm going to make some ramen. Don't use the stove. I stopped and spun around to face him. Why not? It would be best for everyone that you don't try to burn the apartment complex down. And why do you think I'd do that? Simple. Because you think you're heading to the kitchen when in fact you're 3 inches away from walking into your front door. I glared at him, raising a hand, determined to prove him wrong right up until I banged my knuckles into the door. Of course, my sensei just ignored me and continued to talk as if I didn't just injure myself. So with that being said, no stove for you. But my ramen! You have hot water, right? I nodded, though it wasn't always as hot as I would like. It's not worth complaining. Use that. But sensei. I began to complain before hearing a small poof. Sensei? Sensei. I didn't get an answer, so I could probably assume he left. Bastard, I murmured as I turned the other way and headed back to the kitchen. On the way there, I ended up bumping into the table, tripping over a chair and hitting my hip on the countertop. Damn, this is going to be harder than I thought. It took me 5 minutes just to find the stuff I needed. Luckily I live off plasticware, so anything that fell didn't shatter on contact. After that, I waited for the food to be ready, but when, after 10 minutes, it was still crunchy, gave up. I was starving, and didn't want to wait any longer to eat, so I tossed the ramen towards the sink, celebrated briefly when I heard it actually go in, then pulled out my book and headed towards Ichiraku's. Apparently, I knew my way to the ramen shop better than around my own house, because I had absolutely no trouble finding my way there. Though, I myself can't take much credit for that. After all, I was following the scent of ramen the whole time. I did have some trouble dodging people, but other than that I got there without much difficulty. Unfortunately, my impeccable luck didn't last that long. I had put my book on the table, and just as I went to sit down, someone yanked me away by the collar. What are you doing out of bed, Uzumaki? A man demanded. It took me a couple of seconds to recognize the voice as Ebisu. Kakashi said you wouldn't be able to start training until tomorrow because you were recuperating. This doesn't look like resting to me. I got hungry. My answer sounded more like a question, which didn't convince him any, I'm sure. Wait, you're training me? Yes. I heard some sort of clink coming from where his face would be. The only guess I had to that was either he was straightening his glasses or he was suddenly wearing a bunch of earrings. But since this is Ebisu we're talking about, I figured it was the first. What? That jerk. I'm not any happier about this than you are. I would much rather be home reading my books. You mean your porn? My answer was accompanied by a choking sound from where he was. It is, and not PP porn. Fine, smut, exotic literature. Whatever you pervs are calling the Ika books now. You know what, brat? Seeing as how you seem well enough to insult your new teacher, you're definitely well rested enough to begin training. I could almost hear his evil grin. Alright, sounds fine to me. Right now. Hey! Let go! Aim heard Naruto shout from her spot behind the table. I can't leave yet. I have ramen to eat. Nuda, oh hey Aim. Can you keep an eye on my book? I'll be back for it. Thanks, and oh. I demand ramen. The short, blonde boy continued shouting until they were well out of sight and earshot. Was that Naruto? Her father asked from the stove. Yep. She picked up the book and put it behind the counter for him to get later. He was dragged away again, wasn't he? She hummed an affirmative, not bothering to truly answer. How dare they do that? Without Naruto eating here we'll go broke. She nodded in agreement as she waited for their best customer to come back, because he always did. Jerk, I murmured as I sat on the ground, pouting angrily. I was sitting on a patch of grass surrounded by the smell of minerals, the sound of moving water and giggling. If I put all this together I was pretty much sure I was in, or near, a bathhouse. I should have known the perv would bring me here. What are we doing here, Ebisuero? We're here for training, of course. Are you sure it's not for peeking on girls? Of course not. I'd never do such a thing. His exclamation was louder than it needed to be, probably for the sake of the girls that were doing the giggling. Well, most of it anyways. Whatever. What's this training I'm supposed to be doing? You're going to walk across that pond over there. I could tell he was pointing right at the damn thing, so I had to come up with a quick excuse. Nope. It's against my religion. I winced at the absurdity that my mind came up with as a thump was heard that probably indicated some sort of face fall. This was going to be hard to explain, but it was a little late to change now. I had no other choice but to go with it. What? Ebisu exclaimed. It's against my religion that a lowly human should be able to do what only the Kamis can. Naruto. Konoha don't have a religion. What do you call the will of fire then? He was quiet for a moment before speaking again. Alright, that's a religion. But we don't have anything else. What about the flames of youth? Youth. A voice interrupted me from far away. Or the fire extinguisher of fate. There was silence for a moment, but Ebisu and I waiting to hear a shout that never came. The fire extinguisher of fate is not a religion, Ebisu said finally. I was sure someone would have started worshipping it by now, I answered simply before coming up with another one. Oh, what about the log? The log is not a religion either. Tell that to the clans, they worship the thing like it created ninjutsu right alongside the Sage of Six Paths. I wouldn't be surprised if that's why Clucky versus the log was such a controversy. But how is water walking against any of those? I froze, trying to convince my mind to come up with something quickly. Well, it's not. My religion is completely different. And secret. Very secret. So secret, in fact, that if I tell you any more about it I'd be thrown out of the order. What? They take their religion very seriously. If you're not allowed to walk on water, then why can you defy gravity and walk up a wall? He asked, stopping my far-fetched excuse in its tracks. I tried to stall, my idiot brain not coming up with anything to counter it. Thought so, now walk. He grabbed my coat and pulled me to my feet. But you haven't even told me how? It's just like tree climbing, but you have to keep changing the level of chakra because the water's moving. His explanation was rushed, as if he were hoping I have missed most of it. He pushed me forward, making me stumble, my left foot shoe splashing into the water a bit, which is what I was waiting for. Now I knew where the water I was supposed to be walking across was. Fine, but if I get kicked out of the order for this, I'm blaming you. I began focusing my chakra into my feet as I spoke, more to keep appearances than anything. Heck, I might even take pranking back up to get revenge for it. You're not in an order. I ignored him and continued trying to focus. It was difficult, probably more than it should have been since my chakra was still feeling funny. It wasn't moving like it should be, which made my already shoddy chakra control even worse. So I wasn't very surprised when I stepped out towards the water and ended up sinking straight through the surface. What did surprise me was the fact that the pond was hotter than boiling water. Luckily I had taken a deep enough breath to make sure I would float to the surface despite my heavy clothing, and didn't really have to worry about drowning. Instead I was kicking myself in the butt about not bringing a package of ramen with me. It would have cooked up so nicely in this pond. Like I was being right now. As soon as my head broke the surface, I leaped backwards, towards where the land should be, screaming about it being hot. Stop being a wimp, it's not that bad, he said soon after I landed on the grass again. Not that bad? I could cook ramen with this water in about a minute. And it takes 3. I guess you'll have to learn quickly then. There was an audible smirk that I've been hearing a lot lately. It was really starting to annoy me. You're lucky I don't throw you in the bush over there with the other pervert. What? I heard two voices say in unison, one of which sounded similar to the giggling I heard earlier. Apparently my guessing is getting better. It was about then that I felt a swishing around my eyes, which could only mean that these old goggles weren't waterproof. So with a sigh I took them off to clean them. What were you doing in the bush? Ebisu asked the man as the rustle of leaves could be heard. Shush! You're going to scare them away, he hissed back. Scare what away? There was a moment of silence, a silence full of female giggling, before he answered his own question. How dare you peep on the WOM? Unfortunately, before he could finish his accusation, there was a thump and a quickly fading scream. Damn, man should just admit he's a pervert instead of trying to get the rest of us in trouble, the remaining man muttered. Obviously something happened to Ebisu that made him suddenly disappear. Did you just punt my sensei? I kept my head down as I tried to dry my goggles. Didn't you see the fantastic throw? There's hot water on my eyes, I muttered quickly. There was silence, so I explained. Apparently my goggles leak. Goggles? What goggles? I held them up before slipping them over my eyes. Are those Kakashi-sensei's teammates? Yep, my sensei gave it to me after the preliminaries. Don't know why, it's not like I don't have a pair of my own. I straightened my goggles until they felt right. So you're Naruto, he stated, not a question in his voice. I looked up towards him questioningly. How do you know my name? I trained your sensei's sensei. But his sensei was the fourth. Wait, you trained the fourth? Yep. I bet you know who I am now. Not a clue. What? I'm Jiraiya the Toad Sage. You're still just an old pervert to me. I am not an old pervert. I'm a super pervert. My face connected with the floor from the sheer stupidity of the statement. Whatever. I climbed to my feet and dusted off my pants. I gotta get back to training. I paused for a moment before remembering that my sensei was gone. Great, how am I supposed to train if I don't have a sensei? I stood there for a moment, before I heard that old pervert try to sneak away, which gave me an idea. Hey, you can train me. No. Well, you're the reason I don't have a sensei, so you should replace him. What? I don't think so. You wanna bet? I'm not Tsunade, kid. I stood there for a moment trying to figure out who this Tsunade was. I remembered a Sannin medic mentioned in my history class by that name, but I wasn't sure, so I asked. Isn't she one of the Sannin? Come on. You recognize her name but not mine? What is this world coming to? Well, she's a Sannin. So am I, he shouted in my face. I didn't respond as I thought back to academy class, trying to remember his name being mentioned. It took me a moment to remember a Jiraiya being mentioned shortly after the other two. Oh yeah, now I remember, I said, placing a fist in my palm. You're the one with the hair jutsus. That's all you remember about me? No wonder you're the dead last, he muttered to himself. I guess I'll have to introduce myself properly then. He cleared his throat. I heard him quickly go through several hand signs before hitting the ground as he shouted something about a summoning jutsu. After a large poof and the smell of strange smoke wafted away, he continued his introduction from several feet in the air. I am the writer of the best-selling novels in the world, the Toad Sage, master of seals, keeper of the Konoha information ring, and the man that makes every woman swoon. Jiraiya. Why are you on a frog? I was guessing again. After all, he did say it was a Toad Sage, so he could probably summon them. It's a toad, he shouted before another poof was heard, followed by the sound of someone crashing into the road. Whatever. I shook my head at his antics. Wait, did you say master of seals? Yes, I did. He climbed to his feet. An idea popped into my head regarding my messed up chakra that made me almost grin. How good? I am called a master. On a scale of academy student to the fourth. Little bit below my student, if I'm to be honest. Why? I started to believe that this might actually work. My seal got messed up in the second test. Do you think you could fix it? What seal, kid? He asked after a slight hesitation. That pause told me he knew exactly what I meant. I've been lied to enough throughout my life to be able to tell as much. You know what seal? The one on my stomach that nobody's allowed to talk about. You gonna fix it or what? How about the or what? Guess I'll have to find someone else. You'd cause quite the stir if you did that. Jiraiya's playful tone replaced with a more serious one. I pretended to stare at him stubbornly as he was, no doubt, staring back. It was quite hard to keep from laughing when I realized he was trying to have a staring contest with a blind kid. Fine, but not here. I jumped in victory. There's too many people around for something like this. Fine, but not here. I jumped in victory. There's too many people around for something like this. His footsteps started moving away relatively quickly, leaving me to catch up with him on my own. It was difficult. After all, I was using only my hearing to figure out where he was headed. I stumbled quite a few times on sticks, but other than that I did pretty good. We were only walking for about 10 minutes when he announced we were here right before I could walk into him. This should do. Wherever we were, it still smelled like minerals but not as strong as before, that and the water sounded like it larger than the other. Off with the jacket. Excuse me? The seal's on your stomach, right? I nodded. I can't very well see through clothes now, can I? You'd enjoy that too much, I stated as I removed my jacket as well as my shirt. There, happy? I'd be happier if you were a chick, but then I would be a blubbering idiot, so it's probably for the best, he murmured, more to himself than me. Alright, focus your chakra into your stomach. Why? Stop asking so many questions, brat. Then start explaining stuff better. Fine, the chakra reveals your seal. Now focus your chakra so I can see what's wrong with it. Alright then, I started forming a seal and doing as he said. Damn Geki. He hummed in thought. Well, that's probably the problem right there. Someone put a secondary seal over the one you already had. It wouldn't be a 5-pronged seal, would it? I asked, remembering what the snake team had called it in the forest. Actually it is. I guess you know who did it then. It was that weird, snake-loving girly man that gave Sasuke team the hickey. Damn, I should have guessed he was behind it, he said to himself before talking back to me. But there's no need to worry, it's an easy fix. How? Like this, was the only warning I got before he said 5-pronged seal, release, and slammed his palm in my stomach. I stumbled back in pain, though it wasn't as bad as when the seal was put on, but it still hurt. There, now try your water walking. Fine, but if it didn't work, you're next on my reinstated pranking list. I walked towards the sound of the water, as he mumbled something about being a carbon copy of some Kushina person. I ignored him as my toes touched the water so I could start channeling my chakra into my feet. I could already feel a difference as it rushed to my feet in a controlled burst, unlike before. Feeling better about this, I stepped confidently towards the water. And it worked. I could feel my feet sink slightly into the water but stop before even half my foot was wet, and long before I touched the sandy ground. It works! I yelled happily. I looked down at my feet for show, then ran out a little farther before turning around and heading back the way I came. Guess I won't have to put you on my list. Oh, thank Kami! So what do I do now? Keep practicing. Why? I have it down just fine. The more you practice, the better your chakra control gets, and trust me kid, you need it. I thought on this for a moment before nodding in agreement. So get started, Gaki. Alright, but you're buying my ramen. Adasuero took me away from my lunch. But I'm training you. You should be buying me ramen and thanks. But a sensei should treat their student to food after a grueling day's work. He made an unbelieving huff before I continued, bringing up my best argument. After all, ramen is the best way of keeping me quiet. And why would I need to keep you quiet? Well, I'm pretty sure that the girls in the bathhouse would love to hear who was peeping on them a half hour ago. You wouldn't. I could almost feel the glare that was surely aimed at me. Try me. I matched his glare, starting another useless staring contest between us. I must have looked pretty convincing, because he gave up quite soon. Only this once, and you have to work hard or the deal's off. Hi! I focused my chakra and ran towards the water, only to fall right through the surface. This might be funnier than I thought. I heard him call once I broke the surface again. I glared at him before climbing out and trying it again. 5 hours later. I'm done, Jiraiya heard his new student say. He looked up from his writing to see the boy purposefully fall backwards into the sand. It was about 4 in the afternoon, so by his calculations, Naruto had been working for almost 5 hours now. Jiraiya thought it an impressive feat for a boy straight out of the hospital, especially since he wasn't looking too good when he was checked out. Yes, he was well aware of most of what happened. At least that he was hospitalized, thought to have tried to escape, then escorted by Kakashi to his teammate's hut was something akin to a headache. It seemed whatever young Rin did, it must have worked. After all, Naruto has been working hard for most of the day without end. Of course, he wasn't going to tell Naruto any of this. It would probably just inflate his ego, and that didn't need to be any bigger. Seriously? Is that all you got? He taunted. The sun's still up. And I just got out of the hospital, the boy shouted, his breathing still labored from his training. So? That's no excuse. I'm tired. Fine, I guess considering everything you earned your dinner. Naruto threw his fist in the air in victory only to let it drop back to the ground with a quiet thump. Well, get up and we'll leave. Can't. Can't? Naruto nodded without lifting his head. Why can't you? Too tired. Then how do you expect to get there? Me carrying you into town? Jiraiya asked sarcastically. Yes. Seriously? The boy nodded again. What makes you think I'd even consider doing that? Women's bathhouse. You can't blackmail me twice with one thing. Says who? He was silent as he tried to come up with something legitimate the boy would believe. Damn brat, he murmured, coming up empty-handed as he picked the blonde up and put him, unceremoniously, onto his back. I don't want to hear a single complaint, got it? Hi, Naruto murmured, sounding as if he were about to fall asleep. So it wasn't a surprise when after a minute or two he heard a light snoring coming from his back. Jiraiya shook his head at the boy's easy ability to trust almost anyone. It was kind of nice to see a ninja still so naive about the world, even though he knew that he'd have to teach him otherwise eventually. Jiraiya paused for a moment, trying to figure out exactly when he decided to continue training him. Maybe it was when he showed his determination to get stronger, or when he actually noticed his chakra was out of whack by himself. No, it was when he saw him. He looked too much like his old student, like his father, to be ignored. He didn't consciously think about the fact that Naruto's father would never be able to teach his son his best ninjutsu, the Rasengan, the Flying Thunder God technique, or even sealing in general. He just knew that he needed to teach him in his student's place. Guess I'm stuck with you for a bit, he mumbled to himself as the ramen stand came into view. Hey Gaki, we're here. Jiraiya spoke up, but didn't get a response from the boy. Hey, did you hear me back there? We're at the ramen stand. He mumbled something into his sensei's back but did nothing else, not even wake up. He must have been more tired than he let on, the adult said to himself. Guess I'll just take him home then. He was about to turn around when he remembered why he was taking the kid out for ramen to begin with. So with a sigh he went up to the stand and ordered 2 containers of beef ramen to go. After all, he couldn't have him going around telling everyone he's been spying on bathhouses. Although most people already knew this, sometimes letting someone think they have the upper hand opens up a whole different world of opportunities. After all, how could he train the boy if he didn't let him think it was his idea in the first place? Is it for Naruto? The pretty waitress asked after delivering the order to her father. How'd you guess? He teased. Call it a hunch, she said with a smile, glancing at unconscious blonde on his back. Oh, I almost forgot. Can you give him this when he wakes up? He forgot it when his other teacher dragged him away this morning. She had reached under the counter, placing a familiar book on the tabletop. He stared at it for a bit before picking up the book and putting it in his pocket. Don't worry, I will, he said with a smile. By now the ramen was already done and placed in travel containers. He quickly paid for the meal before grabbing his bag and heading towards Naruto's apartment. My eyes shot open as I heard my front door slammed shut. Thinking someone had broken in at some point, I grabbed a kunai from my pouch. As quietly as possible, I snuck towards the kitchen, only to trip on something and make a bunch of noise in the process. Naruto, whatever you're doing in there, you should probably clean up the floor first, I heard a voice call from the kitchen. Kakashi? I asked, climbing to my feet. I headed towards the main room. What are you doing in my kitchen? Again. Dropping off food, that's not ramen. Not ramen? What's wrong with ramen? I demanded as I ran my hand along the hallway wall until I got into the main room. It's not very healthy, he answered from someplace near where the table should be. Your sensei wants you to start eating better so you won't be so exhausted like you were today. That was because of the fight and you know it, I said, pointing an accusing finger at him. A bit more to the left. I adjusted my finger accordingly. There you go. But I want my ramen, I pouted. There's no need for waterworks, your new sensei left 2 bowls on the table for you, he said. I heard a paper bag rustle and the smell of Ichiraku's ramen filled the room. Yes. The black mail still works. You blackmailed a Sannin? He asked, sounding mystified. I ignored him as I rushed over to the table, not caring that I'd bumped into it in my search for food. How am I not surprised? It didn't take me long to find the food or to start devouring it. In fact, I was halfway through the first bowl before I realized what Kakashi had said. Wait, you met my new sensei? I asked after swallowing a mouthful of ramen. Yep, he was dropping you off as I was bringing in the food. How you were able to talk him into training you, I'll never know. Blackmail. Again? It works, doesn't it? You really shouldn't be blackmailing people, Naruto. It doesn't really mesh too well with your Nindo. I don't do it all the time, I stated simply, continuing to eat as I spoke. It's really more of a last resort, well, more of a second to last resort. Before that's prank listing them, and after that it's sexy jutsu. And how does that work for you? Surprisingly well, actually. You'd be amazed how many perverts there are in Konoha. Instead of being called Village Hidden in the Leaves, it should have been called Village Hiding All the Perverts. Seriously? He had an unbelieving tone to his voice as he stopped putting away the food. Seriously. I'm actually surprised there hasn't been restraining orders from the other villages because of this. That's because they never let it affect their work, he answered. I paused in my eating to give him an unbelieving look before continuing on to the next bowl. Sure, whatever you say, sensei. Well, I'm starting to train Sasuke tomorrow, so I won't be able to check up on you for a while. Probably not till the exam, Kaka-sensei warned, continuing to put away different cans and boxes. That's alright, I think I'm getting the hang of everything. Oh, and Jiraiya-san said for you to be at the lake by 8 a.m. tomorrow, and if you're not, he'll come here and drag you there. His words exactly. I guess it would be better if he came and got me, wouldn't it? Why? Before I could answer, he tried to answer for me. It's because you're having trouble figuring out the time, isn't it? Huh. I stopped eating my ramen in my confusion. I guess you haven't discovered that yet, he muttered to himself, making me think. I mean, of course I know what time it is, it's not like I don't know how to read a clock, and if that fails I always can tell by where the sun is in the sky. My eyes went wide as I realized what he was talking about. Sensei. Yes? I can't tell time anymore. Glad to see you caught up. How can I be on time if I don't know the time? Just blame it on me. Everyone would believe you're picking up my tardy habit. But that's only if I'm late. I could be really early or come on the wrong day entirely. I threw my hands in the air in emphasis, sending one of my chopsticks into the wall behind me. This is a real crisis, sensei. Ma, calm down. It's not much of a crisis yet. You'll be busy with Jiraiya all month, who will probably pick you up every day, especially if you're late, he stated simply, still placing cans on the shelf. Anyways, I'll think of something, so don't worry. Alright, I answered before turning back to my ramen, only to remember I didn't have my chopsticks. I thought for a moment, only to shrug and picked up the bowl to slurp what was left. As I finished, Kakashi crumbled up what had to be a paper bag or two and tossed it into something, probably the trash. Well, there you go, he said once the noise had stopped. What did you get me? Bunch of canned food and some random snacks. Sweet, I exclaimed. Arigato, Kaka-sensei. You're welcome. We were quiet for a moment, which let my mind wander. A sensei? He hummed, letting me know he was listening. I was just wondering about something. Ever since the exam, my other senses have been getting sharper. You don't happen to know why, do you? They're compensating for your lack of sight. But are they supposed to be doing that now? Shouldn't it be a bit slower? He was silent for a moment before speaking again. How sharp are your senses already? Well, I could follow the scent of ramen all the way to Ichiraku's, starting from only a block from my house. Were you able to smell that before? I don't think so. Have any of your other senses become as sharp? Well, in the fight, I could hear Kiba moving. You mean his footsteps? No, his clothes moving. And Sakura's been extremely loud lately. I could barely stand to be next to her in the prelims. Is that normal? Your senses should take longer to enhance than that, he said slowly. I asked Rin about it before we left. I'm not sure why they're already so acute only after a couple days. Unless what? Never mind, it's an absurd theory. Didn't make sense in the slightest. But why look at the time? It's getting late, no need to get up, I'll let myself out. Ja-ne. There was a poof indicating his departure. Asshole, I murmured as I continued to just sit at the table. After a couple seconds of breathing in the lingering ramen fumes, I began lamenting my lack of ramen in the house. Then I realized that if the need for ramen becomes too much, I could always make my new sensei buy it for me. With a yawn, I wondered what time it was. I probably should have asked Kakashi while he was here. Right now I didn't even know if the sun was still up or not. I shrugged, deciding not to bother with it. If I was tired, I was going to go to bed, time be damned. So, with a smirk, I headed back to my room to sleep. The next day, I woke up that morning to find the Ero-sanin, which is what I decided to call him, dragging me out of bed as he complained about my lack of an alarm clock. Who needs an alarm clock? I mumbled tiredly. Obviously you, he shouted, making me wince slightly. It's 8:45 in the morning, you were supposed to be at the beach at 8. But seriously, I don't need an alarm clock with you around. And how do you think that? You're loud, annoying, and tell me the time. Alright, smartass, who woke you up for the academy? I highly doubt Irika would stop his whole class just to drag you out of bed. My alarm clock. Where is it? He demanded again. How am I supposed to know? It was here when I left, I answered with a shrug. It was obviously frustrating him, but he deserved it if he was yelling at me before breakfast. Someone must have snatched it. And you didn't lock your door because? Oh yes, because locking the front door is ever so helpful in a village full of ninja, I stated sarcastically. All the thieves would come up to the door with all their tools, find the door locked and yell, "Damn, it's locked. Too bad I don't have a lock-picking jutsu. Or lock-picks. Or a hairpin. Then turn around and leave." Okay, but why an alarm clock? Look around and tell me if you see anything else of any value in here, because if you do, I'll surely return it to the thief that dropped it. Alright, I get it, the Sannin relented. Get dressed so we can leave. I am dressed. Those are the same clothes you wore yesterday. And how can you tell that? I asked Riley, since all my clothes were either those jumpsuits or PJs. They still smell of salt water. I sniffed my shirt curiously, only to wince away at the strange smell of salt and sweat. So get changed into something clean. This is the cleanest one I have. There was a stunned silence for several seconds before I spoke again. I didn't have time to do laundry before I left, so everything that was a little dirty at the start of the exam is now really dirty. You have to be kidding me. Nope. Fine, then the first order of business is for you to collect all those jumpsuits of yours while I try to figure out how to make doing laundry a training exercise, he half-ordered me, as his footsteps began to recede from the room and towards the kitchen. Can you make some breakfast while you're in there? I called, climbing up off the floor. Why should I? Because I work a lot better on a full stomach. I heard him muttering as he started going through my cupboards. While he was preoccupied in the other room, I found my basket and began searching for the 4 other jumpsuits I knew to be scattered across the floor. I had to sweep my hands across the ground, picking up whatever fabric I touched. I kept count of the different pieces I picked up, hoping I could find them all before he came back. When I was relatively positive I had everything, I picked up the basket and carried it down the hall, careful to drag the corner of my box across the wall so I knew where it was. Are you done yet? The Sannin shouted down the hall, which turned out to be right in front of me. I don't know, am I? I said sarcastically. Shutagaki, he said. Before I could say anything in response, I was hit in the head by something. The object dropped into my basket as I stood there stunned. What was that for? That's your breakfast, be happy, he grumbled before a hand was placed on my shoulder. We're running late, so I'm just going to shun us there. Okay. There was a swoosh and my feet found themselves buried in the sand. I put down my clothes as he began explaining my laundry-based chakra exercise. Apparently I was to stand on the water while I scrubbed my clothes against a rock, if I understood him correctly. Wouldn't it be easier to put it into the washer? I asked after I finished whatever it was that I ate. Couldn't you have done that last week? I was busy, I complained, but he didn't say anything back. I figured he was ignoring me, so no matter what I said, it wouldn't change his mind. So with Isa, I got to work. It was pretty difficult having to stay balanced on the water while being distracted with figuring out how to clean my clothes. It took me until a little after noon before all my clothes were drying on the rocks, including most what I was wearing. When we sat down for lunch, I was wearing my boxers and pants, which were both soaked from falling in the water so often. That took longer than expected, Jiraiya said. It wouldn't have if you put them in the washer, I shot back, flopping into the sand near where he's been sitting the whole time. I was pretty sure he was facing towards me, but just to cover my tracks I laid down pretending to stare at the sky. Oh well, it's time for lunch anyways, he said over the rustle of plastic. Sandwich? Yes. I'm starving. All right, hold your horses, he stated as he started making the sandwiches. There was silence for a bit before shouting catch. Knowing I couldn't catch it, I didn't even bother to try. Instead, I waited for it to thunk into the sand on my right before picking it up. Why didn't you catch it? Didn't feel like it, I said as I took a bite. It tasted all right, as long as I ignored the gritty sand flavor that was clinging to it. So you'd rather eat a sand-covered sandwich than be bothered to catch it? I guess so. You've been hanging around the Nara lately, haven't you? We traveled with him a bit in the Forest of Death. Why? Thought as much, he stated, not answering my own question. The plastic rustled again as I can only imagine he was making his own sandwich. Eat up, the real work starts as soon as we're done here. Hi, Erosenin, I said, eagerly taking another bite of my lunch. We were quiet for a while we ate, giving me plenty of time to think on what Kakashi had said about coming up with a sight substitute. I had no idea how I could do this. I didn't even know if there was a substitute for sight. I was about halfway through my lunch when an idea hit me. I had a sensei here for a reason. He had to know something that I could use or he shouldn't be a sensei. Feeling clever, I turned towards where I knew he was and asked. Hey sensei? He grunted in response. Do you think there could ever be a blind ninja? What? Where did that come from? He asked, still somehow sounding surprised when speaking around his food. Well, when I was in the forest for the exam, I thought I couldn't see and freaked out. Kakashi said that it was a genjutsu from a jealous team, so I'm alright now, but it made me curious, I said, rushing through the cover story from earlier to get to the good stuff. I mean, what if it hadn't been a genjutsu? What if I had really went blind? Would I have still been able to be a ninja? I don't know, he finally answered, after thinking on it for a few seconds. He swallowed his mouthful and continued talking. I haven't heard of one before, but then again, I don't know everything. It's possible that a ninja existed that was blind. They would have to have their other senses be really strong or somehow come up with a way to compensate. Though, the second would be more likely unless they were blind from birth. But how would he do that? I don't know, he said around another bite of food. Echolocation maybe. Echo what? Echolocation. It's something bats used to see in the dark. They make sounds and it bounces off their surroundings back to them so they know what it looks like. Cool! I exclaimed happily. Do you think I could do the same thing with chakra? Probably, but why would you want to? He stated suspiciously, but before I could come up with an answer he did so for me. Wait, you're going against Niji in the finals. He has the Byakugan, which, if I know the Hyugas, he's going to rely on pretty heavily. You're wondering if you can create something similar to level the playing field, aren't you? Huh. Oh yeah? You caught me, I said after a moment, his reason sounding a lot better than anything I would have come up with. I thought it would really freak him out. It will be the best prank ever. Do you think it will work? It's possible. I'd imagine you'd have to really crack down on your chakra control, but I think it's doable. Sweet! I exclaimed happily, shooting to my feet. I'm going to start right now. I ran off towards the sound of water before realizing something important and having to run back. Realize you don't know how, huh? He said, clearly amused. I nodded sheepishly. You want it separate from your eye, correct? Yeah. Okay then, this is what we'll do then, Jiraiya said after a moment of thought. You're going to need a focal point. A focal point? A place on your body where you'll emit the chakra waves. It should probably be close to your eyes so your vantage point will be similar. He scratched his chin as he explained. It should probably be located on your forehead or between your eyes. But it can't be hidden by anything because it might mess with your readings. But why does that matter now? We're just working on chakra control. Yes, but while we're doing that we should get your body used to emitting chakra from that spot so it will be easier later on. I nodded in understanding. Are you going to be wearing those goggles from now on? Yes, I like them. Okay then, the focus point should probably be right there. He poked my forehead right in the half an inch between my goggles and my highlight. Unless you'll be moving the forehead protector somewhere else. Nope, that will work, I answered cheerfully. How do I do this? With this. There was a bit of a rustle as he obviously held up something that I couldn't see. You have to focus your chakra and to make this leaf stick to your forehead. What? That's it? Yes, that's it, he said, obviously mocking me. Simple but effective. Irika tried to get a bunch of us to do that when we were in the academy, I said, thinking back a bit. I thought he was crazy. Nope, he was actually giving you a good chakra control exercise. Probably shouldn't have ditched the detention then, huh? Just get to work. 3 hours later. This isn't working, I exclaimed angrily as I felt the leaf slip off my forehead for what seemed to be the millionth time that day. You obviously aren't trying hard enough, my sensei said, being no help whatsoever. I am. It just keeps falling off. I glared at where I felt the leaf land on my leg, hoping my gaze would set the damn thing on fire. It shouldn't be. This exercise is easier than tree climbing and water walking. You shouldn't be having any trouble with this. Yeah, well, I am. I could hear my sensei humming in thought as he processed this. Naruto, I have a theory, but I'm going to need to test it out. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? Drama queen, it's not like it's going to hurt, he huffed indignantly before continuing. I just need you to try the water walking exercise again. Why? I asked slowly. I already did that. Do you want to find out what's wrong or not? Fine, whatever. I got to my feet and followed the sound of moving water towards the source. Once my toes touched the chilled liquid, I focused chakra into my feet and stepped out towards the lake, only to fall straight through the surface. I came to the surface spitting the mineral water I didn't expect to be breathing today. Let me try that again. I climbed out of the water and readied myself once again, but when I tried to walk on the water, I fell through the surface yet again. I tried this repeatedly, each time falling into the lake as if I wasn't using chakra at all. What the hell is this? I demanded, once again soaked. Just as I thought. Something to do with your chakra control got messed up between now and lunchtime. And how the hell can that happen in 3 hours? Good question. I'm not sure, but whatever it is can probably be solved through meditation. I gave him a blank look, causing the man to sigh. You do know what meditation is, right? It's something to do with monks. Why didn't I expect this? Anyways, chakra is a mix of your physical and spiritual energies, right? I nodded. Then it should be easy to understand that if there is a miscommunication between the two, they would not work correctly. Meditation will help you find these flaws, which allows you to fix them. Do you understand now? I guess. He sighed again, sounding as if he was about to try and dumb it down even more. But before he could do so, I interrupted him. Just tell me how to meditate already, will ya? I don't have forever, you know. And the world doesn't revolve around you, if you haven't noticed already, Jiraiya said. It should. My hair's twice as bright as that self-important sun. Do you want to know how to meditate or not? If it will help. I shrugged as he grumbled about ungrateful brats. The trick to meditation is to be absolutely still while thinking of nothing. How the hell do you expect me to do that? Oh yeah, you have attention problems, don't you? If I read your file correctly, it has something to do with excess chakra. Am I right? I don't know, I never paid attention to those boring doctors. That's a yes then. There was an uncomfortable silence as I fidgeted in place. I guess he was thinking, but not hearing anything coming from his direction made me nervous. After about 30 seconds of this, I'd finally had enough. So, how does this meditation thingy work if I can't even focus for ramen? Try to work through it. You might not be able to keep your attention normally, but you're also the most stubborn kid I've seen so far. For a moment, I tried to figure out if this was a compliment or an insult, but decided that it didn't really matter. Since as of right now your chakra control problems are more important than your attention issues, I'm sure you can overcome it. I thought you said not to focus on anything. Relatively. You either focus on one thing or nothing. I guess I can try. I scratched my head in thought. Then let's get started then, he said, almost excited. Sit cross-legged, close our eyes, and focus on chakra control. Is that all? To start with, yes. By doing so you should be able to tune out the real world until you're not even aware of it anymore. At this point, you'll enter what's called your mindscape, if you do it right, that is. From there you will have to look around and find what's wrong. And how will I know what's wrong? I asked, my mind still trying to catch up with him. You just will, was the only answer I got. As long as you don't fall asleep. I won't, Data Boyle. I settled into the cross-legged position, closed my eyes, and tried to focus. 2 hours later. I now had 3 sore lumps on my head from where Jiraiya hit me for falling asleep. I've no idea how he could tell the difference, though it might have something to do with waking up with my face in the sand. Regardless, I was having trouble doing what Ero-sanin had suggested. I just couldn't keep my thoughts focused on what I needed to. I sighed and tried to focus again. Despite how troublesome it was, it needed to be done. I sat there for a couple minutes, trying and failing quite miserably. I was just wondering if I'd be able to con Jiraiya into more ramen when I felt my body pitch forward. My eyes snapped open on reflex as I tumbled towards the ground. There was a flash of color before my face made contact with water. It wasn't the mineral water that I had tasted most of the day yesterday. It was foul and felt almost slimy to the touch. I shot to my feet, sputtering as I attempted to get the taste out of my mouth. I was trying to physically wipe it away when I noticed something. I could see. It was a dark sewer-like place, but I could see it. I could see the murky waters whose taste I was trying to scrape off my tongue. I could see the brick walls surrounding me. I could see a large cage at the end of the corridor that probably shouldn't be there. Once I got over my excitement, my curiosity then took over. I waded through the ankle-deep water towards the cage. When I was closer, I saw a pair of glowing red eyes glaring at me. I stopped short, trying to figure out what it could be. Hurry up. I don't have all day, a deep, rumbling voice grumbled from behind the bars. Startled, I stepped back. Wrong way. Why should I get any closer? What am I going to do, eat you? Sorry, but you humans taste disgusting. Too many cosmetics. This didn't make me want to get any closer. I mean, yeah, he said we taste nasty, but that means he still ate one. Oh, stop being a coward already. We have things to discuss. I don't even know who you are. I knew you were an idiot, but I didn't think you were this bad, his voice grumbled, extremely annoyed. Seriously, how many voices do you have in your head? I didn't think I had any. Did you really think I wouldn't show up in your mindscape? No wonder this place is a dump. Wait, this is my mindscape? Yes, it is. So I did that meditation thing correctly. Nope, I got tired of waiting and brought you here. I moped a while, not liking that I failed at something. Are you done yet? Why do you care? I thought I finally did it only to find out you did it for me. I looked at him curiously, just realizing something. Who are you again? Oh, come on. I'm the damn Kyuubi, you disrespectful little human. The Kyuubi? I stepped back again in surprise. Yes, I'm the nine-tailed fox. So stop moving away, unless you don't trust the fourth's handiwork. I trust it. Then what are you scared of? It's not like I'm going anywhere. I guess, I said, taking slow steps closer to the cage. Once I was about 2 yards away from the door, I stopped and studied the being behind the gate. He was obviously a fox, except I don't think I ever saw a fox 3 stories tall. His 9 tails flicked behind him as he glared back at me. He was also completely covered in dark red fur. He laid on the ground, not even bothered by the water. Are we going to talk, or are you going to stare at me all day? The fox asked flatly. I'm not the one that wanted to talk. You wanted to see if there's a glitch holding back your chakra control, right? I nodded wearily. Same thing, really? How could chakra control and you be the same thing? Think about it. I gave him a confused look that earned a tired sigh from him. Hint, from here, I can mess with a lot of different stuff. Wait, I said slowly. My mind thought rapidly, ignoring the Kyuubi saying something about smelling bacon. Did you mess with my chakra control? Took less time than I thought it would, he muttered to himself. But yes, I did. Why the hell did you do that? We need to talk, and the best way to do that would be to get you to meditate. But you brought me here. Which I wouldn't have been able to do if you weren't at least trying. Really? Well, I guess I could call you over when you were sleeping, but you'd think it was just a dream. Probably. I looked around the sewer-like setting, just happy I could see it. So, what are we talking about now? I have a proposition for you. I turned back towards the Kyuubi, studying him suspiciously. If you're trying to convince me to let you out. No, I'm well aware that won't happen, he said with an annoyed sigh. Instead, I want to see outside. How? Through your senses. You want to tap into my senses to see outside? That's what I said, wasn't it? I'm blind. I know that, you idiot kid, he said with a huff. I want to know what's happening outside through your remaining senses. Why? I asked slowly, not trusting the fox as far as I could throw him. And since I can't throw a 30-foot-tall animal, well, you get the idea. Look around, kid. This isn't the most interesting place to be stuck for a lifetime. At least being allowed to experience what you're experiencing won't be as boring. Can I just change the mindscape? Nope, this place personifies your experiences in life. You, yourself, have no control over it. What happens if I do let you? The seal will be a tad weaker, but with me trapped into your mind, your senses will be sharper. They are already pretty sharp for some reason. That's the result of my chakra leaking into your system. If I'm in your mind, I can influence them directly and make it so you can hear a pin drop from half a mile away, feel inked words on a page, even smell your beloved ramen shop from the gates of the village. It will be confusing for a while, but you'll get used to it. What about Sakura's shouting? It already hurts my ears. Oh, you're up a creek on that one. I'd just avoid her completely. Why would you do this? Increase my senses just for a glimpse of the world outside. I told you I'm bored. That and the way you're going now, you'll die on your next mission. I don't feel like dying anytime soon, and in order to avoid that, my vessel needs to be strong. So you're doing this for yourself, I answered flatly. Of course, you humans aren't worth my time. I wouldn't be helping you if it didn't benefit me somehow. But let me phrase it this way. You're already an idiot, so if you remain weak from this, even if we don't end up dying, I'll be the laughing stock of the Baijus. I am the most powerful of them all. Having a weak vessel would be an insult. You really are self-centered, aren't you? I'm a demon, what did you expect? He gave me this exasperated look before continuing. So, are you going to let me in or not? You could escape, couldn't you? Not really, but I'll promise not to try if it makes you feel any better. I should believe you because? You oblivious, insolent kid. I'm a Baiju. Even if I wanted to lie, I couldn't. Why not? The Rikudo Sennin knew our chakra would make us thirst for power. If left alone, we would take over you mortals through trickery. So, to allow you furless monkeys to retain your freedom, he made it so we could not lie. What does that have to do with not lying? So naive. Do you really think any leader does not have an ulterior motive? You can't rule a country on truth alone. Also, it made it so we could not trick you as easily. But you can still trick people. Right, twisting a few words here and there, making it seem like something other than what I'm really saying. How do I know you're not fooling me now? Because if I was, I'd make it seem like I could give you your sight back. But I can't do that. Oh. I thought for a moment, debating on whether I wanted to act on the idea coming to mind. How good are you at twisting the truth? I've had hundreds of years of practice, Kit, I'm the best. If I do this for you, I want you to teach me how to do that. The damn fox scoffed at the idea. Do you really expect me to go along with this? Yes, unless you don't want to know what happens outside till I die of old age. I earned a glare as he thought through it seriously this time. Why do you want to learn this, and from me no less? Because I'm a horrible liar. I can be seen through like a window. That's for sure. So if I can't lie, maybe I can do what you do. If not, they're going to find me out fairly quickly. You're already doing it, not to my level, but you have the basics. Distraction, engaging emotions, even acting like an idiot is all fairly good tactics, for you at least. He sat there in silence for a moment, trying to decide. Well, I suppose I could teach you. I didn't think the small senses boost would convince you anyways. Seriously? Arigato. Yeah? Whatever. Just put some chakra through the seal in front of you, and it will lessen itself. I nodded and stepped forward and placed my hand on the seal with a small amount of chakra in it. Good, that's enough. Any more and the warden will show up. Warden? You'll meet him eventually, I assume. Well, thanks, I suppose. You can leave now. Wait, I can't meditate. How can you teach me if I can't meditate? A creepy grin spread across his face, making me almost sorry I asked. You'll see. Now get out. A wind blew through the passage, throwing me through a pair of double doors that appeared. I opened my eyes, my mood crushed as the black void stared me down once again. It was about then that the world around me became amplified. I could smell the grass in the field as if I was laying in it, I could hear birds in the forest. I almost literally felt every piece of sand digging into my back. The fox wasn't kidding when they said my senses were a lot stronger, especially considering there wasn't a hint of a forest or meadow when I passed out. Naruto, are you alright? Hands grabbed onto my shoulders, shaking me to get my attention. He sounded extremely loud, and somewhat worried, which probably had something to do with the fact that I was now on the ground. Shush, I whispered despite my ears claiming otherwise. According to them, I was almost shouting. Don't you shush me, Gaki. And why are you whispering? Because you're too damn loud. I was talking normally. And it's too loud. Fine, how's this? His voice dropped to an acceptable level, about the same as mine. I nodded and sat up so I was sitting cross-legged. Now tell me what happened. Well, the QB was blocking my chakra control, which is what you suspected, right? There was a small swoosh of hair that I would have never heard before my new hearing. I assumed that he was nodding, so I continued. Well, he did it to get my attention. Apparently he wanted to gain access to my senses. Why would he want that? My sensei sounded worried, but was trying not to let me know. For this reason, I was starting to like these new senses. Why does anyone do anything? He was bored. Naruto, people don't do stuff because they're bored. Really? Yes, there are reasons other than boredom. But if the world was never bored, they wouldn't think of other things to do. Heck, war probably wouldn't even exist because no one would be bored enough to start anything. So, your plan for world peace is to keep everyone entertained? Yep. I don't want to know how you came up with that, he muttered to himself. Anyways, back to what happened. Okay, well, he was bored, so he wanted to see and hear what was happening so it wasn't so boring. In return, he gave me my control back as well as heightened senses. So that's why we're whispering. Yeah. I decided to purposely leave the secondary deal out of my explanation. It would be best if he didn't know I was being taught by him. That's all? Heightened senses and chakra control for a view of the outside world? Seems a little unequal. He's right, you know. I shrieked as I looked around for the owner of the voice before remembering I couldn't see anything to begin with. Totally unfair on my part. Though your reaction might have just leveled the scales for me. What the hell? I exclaimed, finding myself on my feet. I tried to ignore my own volume, intent on figuring out what the heck just happened. Quiet down. Not only is it a literal pain, but you're making a spectacle of yourself. You didn't tell me about this. You didn't ask. You should have told me. And miss out seeing this? I think not. Naruto? Are you alright over there? Jiraiya must have thought I was losing my mind at this point. Yes, I'm fine, or as fine as I can be now that the QB can talk in my mind. He's speaking in your mind, Jiraiya said slowly. Yes, and he's annoying. Oh, and you're not? I'm not talking to you. There was a strained silence outside my head as that damn fox laughed on the inside. How much did you loosen that thing? Not enough to call the warden, I spoke meekly. What the hell does that mean? Oh, never mind. Just show me the seal. I nodded and channeled chakra into the seal. He thought for a while before he spoke again. Well, you didn't break it, that's good. There's no extra Baiju chakra in your system either. The only thing you changed was opening a passage to your mind so he can access it. Best advice I have for you is to ignore him and not let him convince you of anything. Damn, there goes my plan to have you to take over Konoha for a bowl of ramen. I'd probably work better than a Klondike bar. What? I wouldn't do that. Even if there is ramen. How about for 2 bowls of ramen? No. 3? I thought you said you couldn't lie. Your point? I wasn't lying. I thought about it for about 30 seconds until I figured your damn conscience would get in the way. Or I couldn't get enough ramen to bribe you. Both. You know, you can talk to me without physically speaking, right? I gawked as Jiraiya tried to get my attention but was failing. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because watching you make a fool of yourself is the highlight of my day. If I ever meet the 4th, I'm going to slug him for making me put up with you. I thought, not thinking he could hear me. I was wrong. I am defiantly bringing popcorn for that. I was about to say something in response when I was shook out of my thought. Naruto! Jiraiya shouted, giving me a shake as if to wake me up. I was starting to get used to the volume, but I still stumbled back and covered my ears. Itai. Damn it, sensei. Don't be so loud. I winced at the volume of my own voice. Damn it, I don't need to be so loud either. What the hell was that? His volume was lower, but I could still hear the concern in his voice. QB being an ass. Are you sure you're alright with this? Oh yeah, I'm fine. Though I might go crazy before I get to fight Niji. If you do, my job will be complete. I paused, debating on whether to confront him now, but deciding against it. That wasn't the time for such things. But don't worry, I'm going to ignore him. A lot. You can try. Are we done for today? I asked Jiraiya, trying to get off the topic. We still have several hours left of daylight, and you want to stop now. Yep. My senses are going crazy. I don't think I'd be able to focus even if I wanted to. I suppose giving you the rest of the day to get used to them will be alright. Be ready by 8 tomorrow morning. Sounds good. I turned to leave only to trip over something, sending me sprawled face first into the sand. I tried to scramble to my feet but ended up catching my foot again before I was even up. I sat up slowly, spitting sand out of my mouth. I was sure that Ero-san figured out my secret by that stunt alone. There was no other way for him to interpret it. Jishigaki, if your senses are that warped, you could have just said so. I blinked. Huh? So distracted you forgot your clothes and can't even walk straight. I heard his feet walk away through the sand, pick something up, and walk back. Before I could figure out what he picked up, I got hit with a pile of fabric. Get your shirt on and I'll take you home. Seriously? I felt more surprised that he didn't figure it out than the fact he was solving my problem for me. What? You think I'm just going to leave you there? I'm not that cruel. He huffed in annoyance as he headed away again. I stayed still for a moment listening to what he was doing, which sounded like he was putting something away. This meant he wasn't watching me, so, if I was quick, I could put the rest of my, still damp, clothes on before he could see my process. I quickly felt through the clothes and found one of my t-shirt. I then figured out which way it went and put it on. Once my arms were in the right spots, I felt a bit excited for my success even if the shirt felt a bit strange. It's strange because it's on backwards. Damn, I whispered before slipping my arms out and turned the shirt around so it was correct. Okay, let's go, Jiraiya said from in front of me. I sat there confused for a moment as I tried to figure out what was going on. Are you coming or would you rather walk back yourself? Wait, you're going to carry me? It's better than you getting distracted and walking into a tree. Again. Again? Oh, never mind. I don't want to know. Just get up already. I nodded, getting to my feet and climbed onto his back. Thanks, Ero-san. Yeah, don't get used to it, he muttered to me. I'm not going to do this again. If you say so. I smirked as he started walking, already planning ways to get him to do this again. I would need several of them if I was to have a way home every day. Just work yourself to exhaustion every day, you're good at that. Good idea, I thought back, earning an exaggerated sigh from QB. I was mocking you, Baka. I know, but it's still a good idea. I could heard him grumbling to himself in my mind. I grinned happily at the thought that I annoyed him for a change. 20 minutes later. Here you go, Gaki. Jiraiya placed me on the ground and handed me my laundry basket. I'm sure you can get up the stairs yourself. Yeah, I'll be fine from here. Arigato, Ero-san. See you tomorrow, I'm off to do some research. The way he said research made it sound like something perverted. Is that what you were doing yesterday? I'm going to leave now. There was a poof indicating his departure, making me sigh. Why does everyone shun away when I'm talking? They can't get away from you fast enough on foot. I felt a tick mark appear as I started chanting something about ignoring him. I calmed down a bit and started moving forward towards where I thought was the stairs. I was just wondering how I was going to find them, then my foot banged into something, almost sending me and my clothes to the ground. Found them, I muttered. I glared as I tried to ignore the laughter echoing through my head. Shut up. I struggled up the stairs, trying to remember how many steps there were, but despite having climbed it thousands of times, I couldn't remember. I ran my hand up the railing, starting to count the steps for future reference. Unfortunately, it didn't do any good because I lost count halfway through due to the fox shouting random numbers close to the one I was at. Damn it! I exclaimed as I tripped on the missing step. Apparently the staircase ended sooner than I thought. Now I have to count again. Sucks to be you. What's your problem? I demanded as I dragged my basket against the wall again. Problem? I didn't know I was the one with the problem. You're the one talking to yourself after all. I glared as I walked towards my apartment. It was the third door, so I didn't need to count much. What would your neighbors think? Well, if I had neighbors, they'd probably think I was crazy, but thanks to you, no one wants to live near a demon. Kit, you're no demon. You couldn't be even if you tried. Too soft-hearted. Thank Cammy for that, I muttered. Finding my door, I opened it and somehow tripped over the threshold, sending my clothes flying as I landed on wooden floor. I didn't bother to move as I continued questioning the fox. But seriously, why are you tormenting me so badly? Do you really hate me that much? My freedom was taken from me under false pretenses, what do you think? But the fourth did that, not me. Yes, but a prisoner hates the bars that hold him as much as the man that put there. I guess that makes sense, I said after a moment. But still, there are a million different ways you could show it. Out of all of them, why did you choose pranking? It's kinda immature. You're one to talk. I'm 12. Pranking is in my job description. You're hundreds of years old, what's your excuse? There's a reason why all your human folklore contain trickster fox demons. It's what we do, and I haven't pranked anyone in about 100 years. Needless to say, I've missed it. Let me get this straight, you're pranking me because you can't prank anyone else. That's about it. And there's nothing I can do about it. Not a thing. I was quiet for a moment as I thought. What if I start pranking again? Idiot, how's that supposed to work? You can experience what I am doing, right? So wouldn't that mean if I'm pranking someone then, for the most part, you would be too? There was silence on the other end of the line, making me think that I was wrong when. Son of a bitch, he cursed loudly. Why didn't I think of this? Because I'm awesome. You're lucky, that's all, he murmured angrily. So, I get my prank fix, you get to do the pranking, and the not-so-innocent third party you will most likely target will get what they deserve. I guess that's what you call a triple win scenario. So it will work? Only if the pranks are high quality, not paint buckets over the door or itching powder down someone's shirt. Those are all Academy student tricks that don't even deserve to be called a prank. I will only accept fantastically orchestrated works of art. At least once a week. That's a lot. I suppose I could assist you as needed. Just watching isn't much fun anyways. Sounds good, I guess, but I'm allowed that consecutive license thing, right? Creative license, and yes, as long as you earn it. They don't just give those things away, you know. I guess there's only one question left. Who's first? Both of us were silent as we tried to figure out who deserved our first comeback prank. There were many different choices, but none of them seemed worthy of this first one. Well, until there came a knock on the door. Uzumaki Naruto. I know you're in there. The voice called between bangs on the door. Still avoiding training, I see. How are you supposed to learn anything if you avoid your sensei? Ebisu? I asked silently, earning a throaty chuckle from my tenant. A sly smile spread across my face. He will do. 10 minutes later. Sensei? Sarutobi looked up from his paperwork to see his student sitting in the open window. Jiraiya, will you stop using my window as a door? There is a difference, he chastised as he turned back to the papers in front of him. Difference? I don't see one. The only difference I see is that the window is always open. He grinned as he jumped down from the ledge. But I'm here for more serious matters. What's that? He asked condescendingly. And if it's about that proposition to make all bathhouses co-ed, then I'm going to ask if we do this another time. I'm actually quite busy. No, it's about Naruto. This got his attention, making him look up from his desk and even set down his pen. You know I'm training him, right? I'm aware. Well, his chakra system got messed up today for no reason, so I had him do some meditation, thinking the Kyuubi was behind it. Was it? Yes, now Naruto has made a deal with the fox to get it back along with enhanced senses. And what possessed him to think this is a good idea? I have no idea. Then we should keep a really good eye on him in case the seal weakens. I will, but I wasn't finished yet. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. This deal made it so the Kyuubi can now converse with him mentally. There was silence in the room as he thought this through. Are you joking? No. The Baiju isn't manipulating him directly, just tormenting him and seems to enjoy it, if Naruto's reactions say anything. Well, I suppose it could be worse, the Hokage said as he sat back in his chair and thought. If he's actually conversing with him, even in a tormenting manner, then he's not as out of control as he was 12 years ago. This could be a good thing. I don't see how, Sensei. With Naruto's habit of turning enemies into friends, he might just befriend the Kyuubi. That would make things a lot easier. Yes, but wouldn't it make Naruto more inclined to listening to it as well? The Baiju could make him do something horrible by convincing him it was a good thing. I doubt Naruto is that susceptible. Just as he finished saying that, they heard a tortured scream from the village. They spun around to stare out the window, appalled at what they saw. Down in the streets, Ebisu was running through the village with a copy of what looked like Ika Ika Paradise stuck to his hands. He was so obsessed with trying to remove the book that he didn't seem to notice the paper saying "I'm a pervert" that was attached to his back, or the "kick me" sign right under it. Neither of the two men had to wonder why he was running as they saw the group of irate women chasing after him with a variety of different makeshift weapons. In the front of this mob was an orange-clad, pigtailed blonde with familiar whisker marks that was leading the charge while standing in a cart that was being pulled by Konohamaru and his two friends. You were saying? Jiraiya asked as the impromptu parade made its way through the village, picking up more participants as it went. That you should keep a really good eye on him just in case, he thought for a moment as Ebisu tripped over a sign in the road and ended up getting caught by the group. And don't give him a reason to do that to you. Will do. The next day. Get up, I heard Jiraiya state as the covers disappeared from my bed. You're late again. 5 more minutes, I murmured back, rolling over to face the wall. No, you're getting up now. Before I knew it, I was pulled off my bed by my shirt. The short tumble to the ground woke me up quick. What the hell? I demanded, sitting up. You're late, and you sleep like a rock, he stated as footsteps began to lead out of the room. Seriously? You wear those goggles to bed? Forgot about them, I said, scratching the back of my head as my drowsiness started kicking back in. Get dressed, we're leaving in 5. And don't say you're already dressed. I don't care what you wear to bed, but you're wearing clean clothes to training, is that clear? Yeah. And you better be ready to train today because you're not getting out early this time. I was just trying to figure out where my clothes were when his footsteps stopped. Why are your clothes in the living room? I dropped them, I said, walking towards the door only to catch my shoulder on door frame. Are you somehow incapable of walking straight in the mornings? You can't be that tired. What did you expect? I muttered, making my way towards where he was. Maybe that my student would be a little more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, he answered as I got to the living room. Train a squirrel. Huh. I didn't say anything else as I found my clothes and dragged the basket back down the hallway towards my room. I could hear him muttering something about disrespectful brats as he rummaged through my kitchen. Once I was back, I searched through the clothes to find a shirt, pants, and a jacket. When I finally found one of each, I thought briefly about taking a shower but decided to save that inevitable torture for later today. At least then there wouldn't be anyone here to witness me fumbling with the knobs. So I got dressed, happy for once